Ooh, it's 6:30. Call the meeting to order. We ready? Pledge allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Director Corolla?
Here. This side.
Yes. Vice President Hunt?
Here.
President Duncan?
Here.
Director Fletcher? Here. Director Kellogg?
Here. Looking for my agenda. Okay. Approval of the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to have anything removed from the consent agenda? Anybody from the board? All those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0.
I'm sorry, I did have something, I think. No, it's in George's report. I'm sorry, I'm fine.
Okay, good. Okay, public participation. Individuals. It's dark over here. Can we get those lights on?
Not too much. Bless you.
There we go. One's enough.
That is better.
Whoops.
That's good, yeah.
That's it. Okay, individuals will be given an opportunity to address the board regarding matters not scheduled on the agenda. Although the board cannot take action on any matter not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Opportunity to public comment on agenda items will be provided at the time they are discussed by the board, with comments limited to 5 minutes per agenda item. Anyone like to speak to something that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to old business.
I wanted to comment, Larry, before we move to old business.
Okay.
On the order of the agenda, by moving the committee reports, I've often found in meetings that committee reports influence the business that followed old business and new business. And I would have appreciated that the board at least would have been consulted on this change that's been made. I think we ought to actually go to committee reports.
What's the board's pleasure?
Bill can place that on next month's agenda if he wants to.
Well, who placed it on this much agenda and moved it?
We can't.
There's no requirement to do that. Yeah, but if you want to put that rule in.
Just for clarification, I made a change to the agenda because when we have business items that the public is interested in, it gives them the opportunity to come and listen to their particular item and then move on with their lives. And secondly, committee reports specifically, oftentimes committees are driving agenda items, so then we end up covering the issue twice. So in the interest of trying to save time, I made adjustments to the agenda so that we could maybe move through the meetings more efficiently.
My opinion is that often things come up in the committee reports that reflect on the new business or old business, and sometimes what happens in committees and the discussion is very important to reflect on those and gets discussion going a little bit better than having them after the thing. So anyway, I've had my say.
Okay. Anyone else wishes to comment about things that aren't on the agenda? Okay, old business. Board meeting procedures. Continued from the February 19th, 2014 regular meeting of the Board of Directors. Then requested by Director Hunt, consider adopting the revised policy chapter 4.6, conduct of meetings, and the suggested charges to the agenda as presented or amended.
Oh. Full screen. Well, this was originally the item that Director Hunt took up, and then it was kicked to committee, and I'll let the committee members carry the day on this.
Okay, well, I'm the committee chairman, I think. So I've got to, let me get out my notes.
Definitely get a different breeze over here than over there, that's for sure. I was like, the cooler came on, I'm like, holy crud. Really can feel it over here. No, I'm not cold. I just can definitely feel the breeze under there. You don't feel anything, you know.
Over your head.
Yeah, no, you don't feel anything over here. Yeah, you get some air.
So the committee met on March 12th, and we had two topics of discussion for that meeting. One was the review of the board meeting procedures that I had brought up in a previous month, and the second item was committees of the district in regard to public members. And if I recall right, our committee recommendation is that we adopt into the conduct of the meeting, the agenda items that have been attached. I think they were attached to the board packet, weren't they?
Yep.
Okay.
There's
As the policy, because this is designed to make our board meetings go faster, for one thing, for the primary reason, and give clarification to the public about how they interact with the board throughout each new agenda item that comes up. And at the end of the meeting, after refinement and changes and simplifications, we made a recommendation for the full board to adopt these procedures and use them in upcoming board meetings. And then maybe we won't be here until 10:30 or 11:30 or 12 o'clock. You know, one additional aspect that will help us to get our jobs done quicker. So if anybody has any board members, it's pretty self-explanatory. We had discussed it somewhat briefly the previous month. You have a very simple conduct of meeting shown for the policy and procedures manual, and then I can help flesh it out or answer any other questions that you may have about it.
Everything in blue is new.
everything in blue is new for the policy manual.
Conduct of meetings, yeah.
And then the entire black agenda item procedures information for the public, that's all new.
Yeah, agenda item procedures information. That would be how it would be used, I gather.
Yeah, this was further expanded, so it's easier for the public to understand how the meeting would be conducted. The others are a little shorter, just policy. The ones in blue are just shorter versions of the same thing for the purpose of having it as a policy.
What was our policy before? This is all new then?
Correct. Policy before was the president pretty much conducted the meeting as he thought was appropriate.
What we're doing is we're talking about revising item number 3 on this agenda, the public participation.
No,
No,
I mean,
these are new, old business items, new business items.
yeah, no, but I mean, this is pertaining to item number 3.
No.
More no.
Okay.
Next meeting would be item number 3, if it falls on the agenda this way. Would be some new policy, new procedures.
That's this
public
one?
participation.
No, I don't know what he's talking
No,
about.
sir.
Public participation.
Talking
No,
public
what they
participation.
are,
This is not it.
this item is up for board approval.
Oh, I know that.
If it is,
But I'm saying it is relating to next month's public participation.
it's related to every single agenda item
The whole
on the
meeting.
agenda. Would be
Okay,
conducted in
I
this matter.
I always thought that was kind of nice. You know, we'll have this open time that you just did, Larry.
Mm-hmm.
And for anything that's not on the agenda.
That will stay.
Okay, and then we have that by law, it has to say, as I understand it. But then when we come to our regular board procedures, do items, we're not going to allow the public to have put, like he just asked, just a minute ago, does anybody have any board input for the public?
No, it's
That's
in
on
there.
that's E4.
That's down here on
E4.
E4.
E4, okay. So what have we changed?
What you mostly changed is everyone agreeing to a set procedure. So you start the agenda item with the presentation on what it is, and then staff would add comments, the board members can ask questions, then you open and close the public participation all in one shot. What's been happening occasionally at meetings is the public will interject at various times through the entire process, and this kind of sets it up. We've put the item on the table, we've explained it, we've answered board questions. Here's your chance to make your comments.
They don't have that chance any longer.
And then after that, it's fully the board's turn to debate.
So actually what we're doing is, in the essence of time, and all the other good stuff, they have their one opportunity to make a statement,
Yes.
and that's it.
Okay,
Right.
in the
Because-
past, we would, after our discussion, we would ask the public if they wanted, after the vote. We're not gonna do that anymore?
If they had any further input.
You're going to ask them prior.
This is a different process. This is the one Director Hunt brought from his training. And the reason for putting it this way, if you choose it, is oftentimes by the time it got to a motion and a second and a board was ready to vote, it almost seemed like the public's comments were after the fact, and they didn't really have a chance to give you their opinion before you've kind of all set your ideas. So this way, they get to talk before you debate the issue, and their comment will be maybe a little more effective to their board members than if it kind of seems like you guys all made up your mind, and then you ask for the public.
Well, you're aware that I also, thanks to you, the district and myself, attended that training session. And I remember when we were talking about this, and I even made the comment there, I was sitting next to Director Hunt, that might be the idea, but there's good and bad parts of this. You know? One of the good things that we've got going, and they came out at that meeting that we had in Sacramento, is we really let the public opinion flow. You see, that's one of the nice things, and I've had people tell me that have been here that they appreciate that.
Well,
Now, I realize if we shut them off, that we can be able to handle the business faster, so there's the good point of it. And all that.
Well, shutting them off, I'd like to make a statement to that, because this, it's kind of from me. This is very much what I saw almost exactly at the town council meeting last Thursday night. It was exact. They brought it up. The person who brought up a point talked about it, which would be me in this case. If there were any staff input, then the president of the board would ask staff to make comments about it and flesh it out, anything else that they had. Once that was done, then the president of the board called for public participation on this particular item. And the way they did it was very specific, had people come up, announce their name, and then they were allowed to speak. And they were dogmatic in regard to the time limit. So the people spoke, and the president asked, does the public have any other comments? Anybody else in the public? There was nothing else, and he says, okay, I'm closing this portion of the public participation. And then it would go back and ask the directors to continue with the business. Does anything else need to be asked of the staff now? Do directors have additional questions for the staff? And then the directors do the debate. What I have seen, and I think that perhaps you might like this, I don't particularly, is that we will, at that particular point in the past, I've seen many, many times where the board has begun discussing this item, the item at hand, and then another member of the public thinks about something or they want to suggest something, and they wanted to be like a board member. They wanted to debate this with us and make suggestions and refinements and so on and so forth. And my view on that is if the public wants to have that level of participation, they need to run for a seat on the board and become a board member. We can't have 35 people debating this. When it gets past the public input, then it's time for the board to make the decisions based upon expertise, answers from staff, and then the board moves on, either tabling it for further review and analysis, or making a motion, or just not making a motion.
Larry, could I ask Dustin a question?
Yes.
On your commentary on your individual topic, time reservations or restrictions, and I think that's the time restriction, individual. Enforcement on page iPad 27, it's got tone redundancy, additional items for your consideration. Board desires to adopt such regulation must wish to consider the tone in which the regulations are communicated. Directives such as public may not engage staff members may be off-putting and cause unnecessary challenges. Furthermore, paragraph 4D appears redundant in light of paragraph 4E. Similarly, paragraph 4A and B appear to convey the same message. And then 2, enforcement. My primary complaint and the most significant potential issue with these restrictions is enforcement. If the board adopts these individual and topic time limits, it needs to designate a staff member to time the speakers and to enforce the time limits. Failure to do so may result in challenges that the board has selected as to which speakers or which viewpoints it grants additional time. And I think those are very valid things. I am a strong believer in freedom of speech and asking questions, and our owners of the district, the public, since this is a government agency, have the right to ask questions, and then it's up to the presiding officer to use Robert's Rules of Order or his judgments to what kind of situation we find ourselves in. Very often there isn't any kind of public participation in it, and usually when there is, it's something that somebody is very concerned about the issue that's before the board. So I would say keep it the way it is.
Well, I think, Bill, if you look at E, Section 4, Part C, the board may, a majority board vote may override the president's established time limit. So if there is somebody from the public that you'd want to hear from more, then we can make the decision to hear more from them and then not cut them off.
Oh, I agree, Seth, you could, but you're adding time to the meeting too. You're doing just the opposite of what this is supposed to do. You're going to add discussion by the board members before they vote on whether they should add time and so forth.
Was not that section, the section in red, added after Dustin's letter?
Yeah, Dustin's letter is in reference to the original proposal by Director Hunt.
Okay, before it was changed to this.
Yeah, so I would say my concern about tone, I no longer have that concern because the policy that was originally written, that's really not repeated. The second concern I had about enforcement, that's still legitimate. And candidly, whether you have a written policy or an unwritten one, my concern is the same. And that is if you have, you can't give unlimited time to the PID Booster Club, for example, because you like what they hear, and then give a minute to somebody that you may not like what they're saying. So you got to be equitable in how you, whatever policy you have, written or unwritten, you need to apply it in the same manner, no matter who's doing the speaking.
Yes, that's for sure. I know of a couple of cases, other places where that's happened. Whether they were slighted or not, they thought they were slighted, and like your Boosters example is a real good analogy. Well, one of the things that I think I need to clear when I first started, I like the way that we were doing it with the public, and I never realized that meetings go on and on and on and on and on. And maybe that's because we have too much jabbed into one evening. But I think one of the things that we've been doing is, and even Director Hunt, when you were president, you did that with John Q. Citizen, and I really think that's very good. Oh, I haven't, in fact, I just did a couple of weeks ago, gave another presentation to the town council. Before that, I was always doing them quite frequently, then I got away from that. But anyway, and I have to fill out one of these comment cards, and you have to kind of stay in line with the thing. And what that does, it keeps you from rounding off. I see no problem with requiring people to do that. Like when we had the one on both the roads and the park, J.O. Park, whatever it was.
Well, that sounds to me like if we were to use that, and we have provision in there to use it if we think that it's going to be needed to help control the public, that once a person put in their card, if they were lucky enough to have been here early enough to get their card in, to be first in line so they get to speak, but then when our aggregate time limit exceeds what we're going to allow the public, that person who spoke sat down, then the next card spoke, and the next card spoke, and now maybe the first person wants to stand up and wave their arm again. The president of the board of the town council over there, the mayor, just ignored the public on that because the person had already spoken. He didn't even bother to acknowledge him. He saw him. I could see. I was sitting out there watching. He saw him. He just kept the board going.
I've had both of those happen to me before.
Okay. Well, there's nothing in here that...
But I think that the chair, the mayor in that case over there, and the president of the board here, should have the ability to override it if they want to give a public information. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. It's my opinion that we should not. Definitely not. Because the public gets an opportunity to speak. They do not hold a seat on the board. And they do not debate it with us when we as board members are debating, or interrupt and ask the attorney his opinion or Kevin his opinion. You know, all of those things they have the opportunity to bring up and they make in their comments. And we can make little notes. You can, Bill can, I can, and say, yeah, that's a good question. We're going to get an answer to that before I'm satisfied with this. And then we ask staff to clarify for us.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall any of the public, other than asking for maybe precisions from George or the president, to ask us or anybody about his thoughts. We generally, the public will make their statement and then we'll ask you what you think about this message.
It has happened on occasion, and I try to ask the board if they want me to answer that.
Right.
And so do
Yeah.
I.
Prior to you being on the board, that's happened. And I think, speaking as last year as president, I think that too many times we get into debates with the public when really they're here to make their comment. We're going to take that, we're going to apply it, or we're going to dismiss it. And instead we get into a debate with them, and it becomes a conversation with the public more than we're hearing their opinions.
Well, one of the ways that you can handle that, and I have appreciated the way that the three of you have watched as a chair. You can say, is there any other, we've had several in favor.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have anybody against? We don't need to hear any more in favor of the thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Exactly.
And that's one way, according to Robert's Rules of Order, that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't drag
We
on.
discussed that in the meeting also, but we felt that was more of a presidential prerogative. And if they want to say, are there more people who are going to be saying the same things? Take account 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, we'll let the record show 10 more people want to say the same thing and move on to new territory for some other members of the public
And
to
also
speak.
generally try to quiet them down, because I just want to say the same thing. And I tend to see how the problem with repeating myself as well.
As the president of the board, I feel that we don't have a problem here. Most evenings, sometimes we might on a hot subject, but I have no qualms having the public talk more than once. I think we've got a problem in our meetings being long, but I think it's because of us, not the public. I think we like to hear ourselves talk, and not the public isn't the problem. I think we are. That's my feelings.
I agree with the chair.
If you allow it to not go into policy, then I can guarantee you that the next board president may treat it differently than you. And the third board president may treat it differently than the other two. And then we're going to have a definite difference of handling public, and we're going to confuse them. I don't see a problem with having a policy to say this is the way we run the meetings. For efficiency's sake, it gives the public their full rights. It's not taking anything away from them. It just keeps them from being a pseudo board member, which is my complaint about it.
It does bump them up in earlier, when we're talking about an agenda item, it bumps them up farther, closer to us hearing what they have to say prior to, like George was saying, a lot of times we've already gotten to, we've debated it, we've done it, and then myself, you, whoever's the board president would ask, was there anything from the public? Sometimes that's too late to hear. It might have swayed us into something that we wanted to ask or we were thinking, and we've already gotten to the end of the subject.
My problem is I think that sometimes our discussion gives questions to the public, and now we're not going to allow them to ask those questions, and that's why I know Bill wanted to make the motion and get it seconded right off the bat, and I hated that because then you're telling the public we've already made up our minds, so shut up and sit there. And I don't want to tell people that.
I know, that's Robert's Rules of Order. After you have the second and everything, then you debate it like we're debating it now.
Right, but I'd like the public to be able to say something after we've had our discussion.
Well,
That's
I
my
agree with you,
feelings.
Larry, on that.
That's my feelings, and I personally, whether this passes or not, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it.
Well,
And if you're president, you can do the same. That's the way I feel.
So that statement you just made, so the press understands this, is you said that if you don't want to follow policy and procedures that PID has, that you're not going to do it.
Larry, you're sounding like me.
I'm going to vote against it, and as the president, I think I have a little more
I'm not
power.
talking about that. You made a statement that if you don't like something in policy and procedures, you're just going to ignore it.
No, well, I didn't say that.
Oh.
I
We'll
said
have to check the recording later on.
I said if it passes, I'll ignore it. I'm hoping it won't.
No, you didn't say if it passes.
Is there any?
no, to answer your thing, I've had the opportunity to watch 3 presidents now. You, Seth, and you, Larry, out here. And going back to what, I don't think the public has any misconception of the policy here at all. You know, so.
There is no policy.
There is no policy, so it's
There
kind
is
of
no
it's
policy,
very
Doug.
open-ended. So is there anything we could do to what's been presented here that where we can maybe retain some of these things on here, but is there something that someone wants pulled off or maybe amended?
Well, the only way to possibly satisfy your needs would be to do a loop around, and after you have the presentation of the product and the clarification of the person who presented it and input by staff, public participation, then the board discusses, asks further questions, so on and so forth. I would see no great harm. It'll slow us down a little bit more, but I would see no harm in the president of the board when we put in back here toward the end of that before we go and make our decision. Is we open it back up to the public again.
Or the president has the option
And say,
to up to the public.
well, or just do it every time. I don't know.
Yeah, just put
It'd be
in
fine
there-
with me
just
that the
put in there
president.
that the president has the option to go back to the public if he wishes. If you
Well,
put that in there,
I don't know if we should have an optional thing because then we might get favorites. I think we should either do it or not.
Well,
so I would say do it.
Do it.
Then let's just do it.
If you put that in there, I'll vote for it.
So then you add an item after 5 and before 6 that says
Yes.
the public is provided a second opportunity to speak. Maybe
New items, on items that were not previously brought up in
Right.
public.
yes.
Oh, that's good. That way they
Yeah.
wouldn't just argue the same point they
Right.
already brought
Yeah,
up.
That way they won't say it twice.
I like that, Mr. Attorney.
How about
I've been to a few
also
meetings.
adding this portion is limited to 3 minutes.
That would be a good idea, to keep it
In other
moving
words,
ahead.
what this will do, if it's going to be 5A or...
That lets them double dip.
It'll be 6 and 6 will turn to 7.
If they have another,
Right.
if they have another thought, new issues process before we vote, they have time to say it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That gives them plenty of latitude to...
As long as it's a
They
new
hear
topic,
something,
like
they
Dustin
think
was
about it,
saying,
want to bring it up.
as long as it's a
That's
new
what-
topic.
That's the thing I didn't like about
Or a
the
new
town,
question.
We've
because
probably
they
already made
have a tendency to cut the public off
Particularly,
too soon.
particularly when we...
Right.
now,
I don't like the card deal either at the town. Of course, they've gotten, at first, if you didn't put a card in, you couldn't talk, but then they loosened that up.
Well,
And
in
they
this,
had-
we
they had
put
cards
may,
when I was there.
Because we may have issues like rates where it's
Larger
much better to have
population.
cards and make it more orderly.
Right,
Have a
yeah,
lot of public interest.
right. It depends on the, how big the audience,
Yeah.
right.
So,
Well, number one is,
Okay, with that change, I move that we,
well, you want to ask
does the
public?
public
for their-
want to talk about it?
Yeah.
I'd just like to say one thing, because I've been watching this as it's kind of progressed, and it seems to me that it really starts as an issue of confusion between what the board's role is and what the public's role is. We all can concede that the public does not have a right to participate in your vote, right? They don't also have, they don't have a right to participate in deliberations either. And I sense from what Ken is saying tonight, that's kind of, he feels that the role is becoming kind of blurred and the public begins to participate in deliberations with you people. And I think the purpose of this is to separate them again, is what it seems like to me. So.
it's exactly what I was saying, is there was a couple of times in meetings that I was president where it just seemed, and it was my fault. I was letting it go there. It's kind of human instinct, I think, to let people talk, you don't want to be rude, and you said, be generous, but at the same time, that's not productive sometimes either.
This paragraph that's going to be added that we just talked about, not to be too redundant, that would give the public plenty of opportunity to get their second thoughts on it.
Did you?
Thank you, Board. Unlike my predecessor, I'll stand up here where I'm supposed to. When I read this on the agenda, it worried me immediately because I've got a lot of Mr. Hunt's,
Lauren, under these new things, you have to expect it to identify themselves and state the city of their residence.
Lauren Harvey, Paradise resident since 1947.
Haven't been here long enough.
You try to come like it don't count. But what worried me most when I saw this was Mr. Hunt brought this forward. And the reason is because I've got video, lots of video, of him saying he didn't personally give a damn what the public thought. He was elected. He'll speak for them for the 4 years. So every time Mr. Hunt brings something up, not to make this too personal, but I feel like it's an attack on me because I'm always here talking. But the thing is I know that you're not interested in what the public thinks, but the public is what pays for this whole show. And I feel that when you guys have a debate, when we stand up here to say something, if we come first, we don't know what's in your mind. So after you say what's in your mind, then we got a thought about, oh yeah, well, 2 and 3 might be 5. Okay, it's 5. So that's the thing about it. So when you guys debate, you bring on input from the public after that. And you're exactly right, Mr. Duncan. That's exactly the thing. So I'd be all in favor of, say, 3 minutes before and 2 minutes after would be plenty. If you can't get to the point in that time, you shouldn't be here anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. So with the amendment that Dustin was talking about.
Well, there hasn't been
I know, but what he's talking about, then that would cover that. The wording that we had, what we came up with, and the wording that you're talking about would cover that. So
Okay, is there a motion?
do we want to type that in?
I'll cover it with the motion.
Just
to-
cover
Yeah,
it with a
cover it with
motion.
motion, yeah.
I move that we that we, I gotta find it on the agenda here, that we accept the, whatever we termed it, policies review. Yeah, I ran out of battery, but that's all right. I move approval to adopt the revised policy, Chapter 4.6, conduct of the meetings, and the suggested changes that were made by council to, in between the current 5 and 6, add that paragraph 5.5 that will clarify at that particular point of our process. We will go back to public and ask them for additional input with a shorter scheme of time allotment on, I don't know how to say this, on items that haven't already been,
New issues not previously presented.
on new issues not previously presented. And hopefully, well, I mean, we can be pretty liberal on that, but educating the public about what they can and cannot talk about at that time so it moves on. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Sticking to it.
I have a comment. Georgiana, since you'd probably be the timekeeper in this, do you have any suggestions on how we signal to the public their times?
Electroshock.
What?
Electroshock.
Electroshock.
Yeah, exactly.
Wired right up there to the podium.
I'd buy a clock, put it right up in front.
Yeah.
My feelings are,
That would be,
if I were president, I would only announce that we're going to stick to the time if there was a big issue on a lot of people.
Can I speak to that? As I'm not recommending a change, but I'm maybe just how you apply.
Yeah.
More so on the aggregate time limit. There's times when issues will come before the board that require a public hearing. One is rates, one is a CEQA project, for example. And I would recommend that whoever the president is at that time, that you not have any aggregate limits. That's not to say you can't control the meeting. You know, if 60 people get up and they all want to say we're opposed to the project, you know, after number 7 or 8 or however many people, you could say enough of this type of comment. We're becoming redundant. But but you don't need to change the policy. That's just how you apply
That's
it.
why we made this an agenda item procedure policy, because we have public hearings that won't follow this exactly.
And the language of the policy is discretionary. The president can do that on some items.
But I don't think there's any, do we really need to get a clock?
Well,
We can put a clock right here.
and since Georgiana's usually typing, it'd probably be Kevin more likely that would keep track of the time than it would be Georgiana, I would imagine.
It'd be me probably keeping track, and I could
Yeah.
just put a clock on the screen. It would
I'll speak in favor of this. Did you get a second on that?
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll say, I'll speak in
And
favor of
underneath
this.
the desk.
Motion and policy, this is no policy with the exclusion of the new sentence in there. I think it's very generous to the public.
See, Ken, the reason I said I wouldn't follow it was I was letting the other directors know how I was going to vote. Okay? So we got something done. There was a method to my madness.
Yeah, there always is, Larry.
Okay, roll call, please.
down here, thank you. Director Corolla.
Over here.
I know.
Yes.
Vice President Hunt.
Yes.
Director Fletcher.
Yes.
Director Keller.
No.
President Duncan.
Yes. Passes 4-1 with Mr. Kellogg voting no. Okay.
Oh, come on.
Okay, now, since there's nobody here for any of these things, we're going to jump ahead and do the treasurer's report, because I hear we got $1 billion here somewhere. Yeah. Treasurer's
We're
report.
going to jump ahead and do the
Yep.
treasurer's report?
Right.
You are really feeling your oats tonight, aren't you?
You need to leave or something?
Yeah, do you need to leave?
All right. We have my written report. We do not have $1 billion, but there was an error on there, so I can clarify that for you. Basically, our cash position is about the same as it was last month. Not much has changed. From a financial standpoint, we're really right on budget. Everything is actually trending very well. I'll walk through the trends of our consumption revenue here in a minute, but everything seems to be going fairly smooth. I am currently formatting next year's budget right now to getting all the information over from last year into to the current budget. The ACWA, we are in the process of getting all the data over to them. They're going to then be putting it into their system, and then once it's into their system, they're going to be formatting it, and then we'll be working hand in hand with them to make sure that everything looks like how we want it to be, getting the calculations in there the way we want it, and so that it's giving us the information that we're looking for. But right now, everything seems to be going very smoothly, and it's in the process. So. The district customers, our online payments have gone through the roof, which is great for us. We have a lot more customers paying online because we eliminated that fee to pay online. That saved the customer service people a lot of time. And the customer service people right now are dealing with a lot of customer service complaints due to the fact of the taste and odor issue. And so the other thing too is that we've changed our billing dates, and some of the information that's gone out was a little bit confusing to them, so we have a lot of customers saying, I only have 25 days or 27 days to pay my bill. Well, you do, but it's based on this date, not the date that you normally used to. So we had a lot of people freaking out. It seems to simmer down, so things have, it's opened up a little bit of time on their hand to do that. Plus we've had people in and out of the office recently. It's just been kind of a strange time. I'm kind of linking the long-term forecast to Georgia's rate study, so that when we are ready to look at the rates more in depth, we can look at long-term projections about how we want to handle maybe some of the fluctuations in revenue based on a new rate structure. If the new rate structure is heavily based on consumption or more based on consumption, how we want to handle that into the future, being that so we can absorb some of those down years and maybe waiting on capital projects until we have those up years, so waiting until we have that money flowing in. And then in a couple months, the remaining of the ICMA money will go over to FTJ. So that's been that long wait, that 1 year wait period. It's almost up. May 2014 will be that.
What did you do on May 2014?
Remember, we changed retirement plan providers almost a year ago.
Well, that's
A large portion of the monies was in a fixed fund that couldn't be basically unlocked for a year waiting period, and
okay.
that's almost up. So
I was curious about 4. The long-term forecast is currently being linked to the rate study. Did you talk about that? And
yeah,
I didn't hear you.
George is doing a rate study and has that's what he talked about last week or last board meeting, about some of the rates that he's looking at and how he's looking at changing some of those to maybe be a little more heavy on the consumption side than it is on the service side. Because right now our rates are basically 75% service charge, 33% or 30% on the consumption side. With George's new rate study that he did, it would be more like a 50-50 split. So our revenue would be from 50% consumption, 50% service. So I'm taking his numbers and linking them into a long-term projection so that the board has information based on what's happened in the past, what it would look like into the future with those rates.
And that's compared against our current rates.
That's correct, yeah.
So we have both of them to look at.
If you want to turn to iPad page 68, this is where that $1 billion is at. I just missed the decimal. I tried to put a decimal point in, but I added a 1 too. So it's the actual consumption revenue right now is $1,582,750. What I wanted to do is kind of show the board where our most variable revenue is and how it looks like from year to year. Because you can look at in 2009, 2010, 11, and 12, we were at $1.6 million. That's actually like from historically looking back, it's historically low consumption, just due to weather patterns, due to education of the customers.
Meters.
The meters being installed, people cutting back because of that the meters being installed. And then you can look at 2013, we jumped quite a bit. Again, it was again, I want to say it's part of the meters too, because the meters are calculating all of it, but also it was a very dry year, so there was very high consumption. And look at June of 2013, we had 232,000 of revenue. That's just historically high revenue for that month. And what I'm presenting here is in the light blue, you can see what we projected in the budget. This is historically what we've collected every month, taking those budgeted numbers so you can kind of see where we're at, and then taking the actuals and mirroring them against the budget. The estimated ending revenue is basically the budgeted numbers. I just brought them up and then added them all up to see, okay, where, if everything goes as planned, where are we going to end up at the end of the year? And we're almost very, very close to budget, $50,000 off of what we had budgeted. And that could be high or low based on what happens in the next couple months. But that's our biggest variable revenue. Everything else is pretty fixed. Salaries are fixed, chemicals are fixed. We don't have a lot of variable expenses in the district, and we have service charges, which is our biggest revenue, and that's fixed. I mean, that's not going to vary based on weather patterns or anything like that. So this is our biggest variable revenue item, and I wanted to kind of present it in multiple type of ways. You'll start seeing this more and more as we start looking at rates, because if our rate structure is heavily on the consumption side, well, this is something that we really got to pay attention to make sure that we're not spending money based on a budget that might not take all that revenue in for that year. So we might have to be a little more conservative on that.
When I first got on the board and saw this thing, it was brought out that the previous boards had put it in the service charge so high, just from what you're talking about. They knew whether it was a drought year or not, they're going to have X dollars coming into the district, and then the consumption could follow along. So I was sort of thinking, well, that turned out to be a good idea, at least in the dry years we've had since I've been on the board. And I'm going, why would we want to turn it back to consumption, where we're going to have the variables for budgeting and other purposes? And if we really had a bad drought, we would, really being hurt financially. We might have to lay people off or something.
The reason why is because right now we try to balance two things. We want revenue from our rates and our customers, but we also want them to conserve. Right now we have no way to encourage them to conserve, because if they use more water, that amount of money that they have is very small in comparison to their total bill.
My son-in-law saw a thing in the Sacramento Bee where they were using the same meter system we have, and they actually were highlighting neighborhoods, and they found people that were better off financially were the ones that were overusing their water because they could easily afford it. So I guess they're actually using that information, if I understood him right, to highlight that area. In other words, if that was the case, then you could raise your fees or water consumption bill, and you could, with the use of the meters, you could tie it right to the customer, and maybe that would be a compromise where you could, and if it is the people in the higher income brackets in the community, evidently we can use our meters to spot this if Sacramento can, because I think they have the same meter system.
But Bill, you got a Prop 218 problem there,
okay,
if I'm understanding you correct.
Yeah.
Fees have to be tied to cost of service, so you can't charge
So if they're a private water company, they could do this, but us as a public, we cannot. Is that what you're saying?
They may, and I'm not familiar with which Sacramento entity you're talking about.
I don't know either.
But that may be the difference, that they're a municipal water company, not a public agency, in which case they wouldn't be subject to Prop 218. But you can't charge the customer that has a mansion a higher rate than you can the customer that has an apartment.
No socialist blood in you at all.
Well, actually,
You're pretty much tying it with tiers anyway because of water usage.
the new the kind of the draft rate study actually does that, Bill, because those that use more water and can afford to use more water will pay a much higher bill because they're going to be in those higher tiers where it costs quite a bit more.
So looking at our rate, the service fee, particularly when we go into this rate increase for our capital expenses down the road, Kevin and I have talked about this in detail. I think that the only way you've got a guaranteed amount of money coming in is on that service fee on each meter.
Not necessarily.
Guaranteed, because if you stop using water consumption, let's say myself,
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know you got my service fee coming in, but if I stop using water like I'm planning on doing this year because of the drought, I guess, primarily, that's gonna go way down, my consumption fee.
Yeah.
Even if you put it 50%. So, I mean, I was just going, the only way you can guarantee that you're gonna have the money to come in to pay the bills is on the service fee. Really?
But the
Bottom line.
That's the bottom line. But there is, you can basically estimate that you're going to have a certain amount of consumption.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So what George has done, and I think it's a great tool, is that he's taken what we normally have in consumption, what our normal consumption is, and then he's dropped it by 20%. Okay? And then he's looked at the dollars after that 20% drop. What are we looking at now? And even with that 20% drop, we're actually still equal or right at what we are currently. So there's some absorption in there too. So you're not just going, oh, here we go, open up all the variations.
Yeah, you don't assume they're going to use the same amount of water they used to.
Well, I appreciate that. In fact, I made a note here of the 50-50 because I like to look into it further. But when Trevor interviewed me and put the article in before, I stated more than once, I'm completely satisfied the way you're having this drought and this rate increase and all that, George. That's in the Post, I don't know if you read that article. So if I'm questioning you, I still made a statement that Trevor interpreted it the way I said.
I'm not arguing, I'm just trying to help you understand.
But still yet, I've been in business long enough to know that the guarantee is what you know you're going to get. If you're waiting on business to come in, and I have a couple of businesses that way right now, it's called blue sky, and it's a shot in the dark.
Yeah, we're not doing the shot in the dark.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Any other questions?
let's, we're through here. Let's go to the public. Does the public want any input? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Will you cut it off?
I'll make a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0.
We didn't do checks.
Approval of February checks.
No, Kevin doesn't get to go watch basketball just because he's done.
Okay, anybody have anything to ask about the check?
I've
Or
only-
accept?
I've only got one, thank you, Larry. Our PG&E bill, and I'll have to get to that page. There we go. iPad page 83. I noticed that Black Olive, I think I picked this out when we still had the old office over at Black Olive. We've got a PG&E bill from there. I would assume that to be the last one since we're out of there.
Should be.
Okay, so that was the payment for January on our move out, basically, because then we clear out in January.
When was our last date there?
Yeah, but we were still working. We had a bill for a while, so it was a February date.
But we're out
So
now.
We may get another one.
We're gone now, so we shouldn't see. Okay,
Yep, we've turned it over to the owner.
that's what I thought. Okay.
Are the lights off?
I believe so.
Well, if you remember on the old administration office, we found out there was something. I noticed one month that even when we had it before we sold it, that we had a PG&E bill and it was kind of high. It was like
Yeah,
And then we went over and we found out we had something on.
yeah, water heater or something.
Yeah, exactly, that really shouldn't have been on. So, yeah, we were spending a lot of electricity for no one home.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
I just want to make sure that we're done and out. And that was the only thing that I had.
okay. Ken?
No questions, Kevin.
Kevin, did you say? Bill?
I've just got one thing. On the list that's still there, I asked about when we paid invoices on the one for Dustin.
Which page, Bill?
The first one is page 74. It's the last one on the invoice due date, invoice date. And we received it on the 1st, and we paid it on the 13th on page 83. And my question, was that approved by the board or not?
Which one is he talking about?
Which one are you talking about?
It's check number,
46056?
yep,
It's the last one on the,
Oh, the Manassian bill?
yeah.
The Manassian bill has never gone
Yeah, why would it not be approved by the board?
for it's always been
Yeah,
a part of.
It's a
it wasn't treated any
contract.
differently.
It's like PG&E. It's
oh,
Yeah.
the concept's the same.
actually,
We essentially approved that when we approved to have Dustin at our meetings and take care of our legal
Approved
status.
payment, yeah.
Exactly. So
so it has been approved by the board.
we approved it when we took Dustin on as a permanent fixture,
Permanent fixture.
or a visiting fixture, but one of the two, either way.
Not permanent enough to get health care.
Yeah,
Anything else? Bill?
semi-permanent.
That's the only question I have.
Okay. Doug? No questions? Okay, I got questions. Page 82. And I got this answered, but I just wanted to, it's JC maintenance to the lake and at $204.49. I thought, wow, we're doing housekeeping for the lake now? But George said this is supplies.
Supplies, not
Right.
somebody doing it.
Right. And on the same page, Lee and Rowe, $13,000.
Mm-hmm.
How much have they, how much did we approve on them?
220.
220? And then how much?
Because we went up an extra 10.
I think I saw it today.
Back on this
209.
previous page.
209, 418, so there's 20,000 still open.
Why didn't you put that as a extraordinary expense on your graph?
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, you did before, and I just wondered why you didn't.
Contract page though, right?
Okay. Page 86, Kittle, is that the final on the audit? Okay. Page 86, Town of Paradise. They're making us do a permit, 2 permits?
Final payment or remit here?
Not final.
I mean, progress payment.
There was a fee for the temporary operating permit. The two $83 ones are the inspection of the septic tank before it was turned on and became active.
It looks funny when you pay the bill twice. The same amount, almost the same amount twice.
Well, they have set fees, so
But so they required 2 permits for the yard?
2 inspections. I think those were inspections.
The 83,
They're
but
in
what
there.
about the 320?
Maybe what it
One
is?
was an inspection report and one was a final report, I think.
Okay. Okay, and the other one was Tri-Counties. There's an equipment purchase of $21.51.21 under the Tri-Counties Bank. What was that?
Treatment plant.
I can't remember what they bought on the card for that.
What's TP mean, equipment
Treatment
replacement?
plant.
Treatment plant.
No, it's not toilet paper. It's
It's
treatment
not
plant.
steel, it's
Yeah.
for the treatment.
They got the extra big Costco bag.
Smells good over there.
We'll do it. That's why I brought it.
Yeah, I couldn't be
Jolly
sure.
type, though, that isn't the,
I don't remember. I don't remember that one. But they, I
Okay,
mean, they have a lot of expensive equipment.
Nothing
I
but
know
health
they've
food.
worked on the.
that's why I made it.
There was valves that needed to be replaced on the backwash.
it's just the
Are those the
term-
spring valves that we saw
The
the
term equipment
pictures of?
threw me because usually you are more specific.
The valves were gonna, whatever valves that were in there,
Yeah.
in the, I think it was the backwash system or something.
So there was that. I know that was a big one. There was an extra. I don't know. Thought I just approved that though. It may be coming next month. There's an extra RTU unit, whatever the acronym is for. It's the computer unit for the pump station number 2. Having a backup redundant one. But I'm not sure which this one is.
We're gonna table everything else. Go home.
When it goes through like this on a bank card, what is our internal procedures? to
Same
make-
as if it was a check.
Huh?
Same as if it was a check. So they have to get a purchase order, and they have to get it approved, and then it has to go through the same procedures as if you were to write on the check.
Before they could take the card and
Use
charge
it.
this?
Correct.
Okay.
Is there a limit on the card?
Yeah, each manager has a card, and each manager's limit is $5,000 right now. We have the availability of increasing, decreasing online based on what's happening. So if they need, if they got something approved for $10,000, we can approve it for a one-time purchase up to $10,000, or we can drop it down to $1,000. And they have internal purchase things in the card itself that say somebody went to the liquor store and bought liquor, it would deny the card automatically. So it's based on items too, so it'll automatically deny items that are not approved.
Cruise tickets, can't do that.
But
Yeah.
Cruise tickets?
can do cruise tickets.
Okay, public wish to speak to anything on this subject? Okay, I'll entertain a motion, and please make it the way it's written on the agenda so that Ken will vote for it.
I move approval of general fund check numbers 46012 through 46121 for the month of February 2014, totaling $409,112.07, exclusive of voided check numbers 46033, 46039, 46043, and 46054, and authorize an authorization of a similar amount allowing or adjusting for extraordinary budget or board-approved items during the month of March.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Oh, I just wanted to ask where he found that. I didn't see it.
iPad page 2.
Huh? iPad page 2?
Yeah.
What, you mean
The
the,
Right
agenda.
on the agenda.
It's in,
On the agenda.
cover of the agenda.
Oh, okay, because I was sitting here going, well, I don't see anything.
Quite honestly, Bill, I searched my iPad for quite a long time until I accidentally went back to the beginning, and I went, I'd given up looking for it because I thought it used to be back at the beginning of the checks.
I was wondering how you were doing that.
Yeah, and then I got back here and I'm like, oh, there it is.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Okay, so now we're going to go into closed session. No, we aren't.
I figured you were going for director's comments.
That's what he wanted, director's comment. Okay, now we'll go back to new business. ACWA Joint Powers Insurance Authorization Authority Commitment to Excellence. Consider approval for the district to join the Commitment to Excellence program with ACWA JPA IA.
DIA.
Action may be taken. George?
Yeah, when last time Aqua JPIA came up for training, their representative came and talked to me in the office and told me about this new program that they established. Just trying to seek boards and general managers to join their Commitment to Excellence program, committing to a high level of training for the employees, safety awareness, loss prevention, many of the things we have in our policies that they developed that we've developed in conjunction with them. And so when your insurance company asks you to commit to excellence, I better ask the board if they want to.
I move that we approve joining into this limited excellence program with our carrier.
I second.
Is there a cost?
That's what I was going to ask.
I'm hoping it lowers our costs.
Does the public wish to?
Oh, was there, did you say there's no cost?
No cost.
I do have a question.
Okay.
I do too.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I'd like to know what the best practices are. You know, I feel a little uncomfortable committing to something, although it sounds so good on the surface. I would like to know what those best practices are behind the curtain, just to make sure we're not committing ourselves to something that maybe is going to end up being very expensive or we wouldn't otherwise need to do. Just a little clarification.
I know that best practices have been developed into all of our policies, and many of these types of policies are kind of driven by JPIA language. And so when they asked me to bring this commitment to you, I went online to their Commitment to Excellence program expecting to see a best practices list, and they don't have one. They only have exactly what you have in the packet, which was handed to me. And so I don't have that, and I agree with you. There should be a bullet point, at least 10,000-foot view of what best practices are.
Is there any time-sensitive nature to this, or could we go back and ask him for that and then bring it to the next board meeting? Because it's not very far away, April 8th.
Yeah, there's nothing time-sensitive.
Okay, so mine goes right hand in hand with Ken's. Is can they, at that point, mandate us to do something to maintain best practices? Like Ken was saying, it's going to cost us dollars, maybe down the line. If we decide to join, does this give them the power to drive our policies
No.
and practices?
If they felt we were not doing best practices, that could result in our rates
Sure.
in the future. But there's been no talk of a discount for the commitment.
Well, that was my
no
other part.
talk of
That was the other part of my question. Is just like, you know, if I've got a home alarm, you know, then the insurance company gives you a discount, for doing that. Dustin, are you seeing other districts?
Yeah, South
joining?
Feather signed on. Western Canal signed on.
Yeah,
Nobody expressed concern.
I believe, like George, if your insurance company asks you to do something, we'd prefer, if we're going to insure your car, that you keep some good tires on it.
Yeah.
That's just common sense type stuff.
Hey, who's going to say you're not committed to excellence?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I vote no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't have the number in front of me, but I was told that there were several districts, and one of them, in fact, we had quite a discussion. Remember when we had the defensive driving thing here?
Mm-hmm.
That instructor, who was the leader someplace, was talking about it, and go down here to the musculoskeletal fall injuries. I think one of the things they'll do that, because I've been involved in helping set some of these up for school districts and other places in private and public sector. If you have tailgate safety sessions, for the lack of a better term, where you talk about fall prevention and keeping your crap up off the floor and the cords, and how to properly pick up, and you don't just do it once in a lifetime, you do it quite frequently. Yeah, those are the type of things we're talking about.
Do we not have weekly shop safety meetings?
This is probably a good time to remind you, every Monday, we have a safety meeting every week. Probably takes 45 minutes. And then every single day, there is a tailgate safety / planning meeting that each individual work group goes through.
That's that. Well, I see no problem. That's why I jumped on making this motion, because I've never seen one of these things that I've observed or I've helped put on that isn't a positive happening, such as that defensive driving school that we attended. Some of us, there's a couple of us that really did that.
LAFCO, I turned my certificate into LAFCO. They get an insurance discount based on all these certificates. I don't think they're.
Did you get it?
Have they seen you drive?
Do, yeah.
Yeah, I'll turn mine into Ron Jones.
Yeah.
Good point.
I'd like to ask a question
Have they
of
seen
Mark.
you driving?
You're on. I want to know, this commitment to excellence. No? But commitment to
It actually
excellence.
is helpful, because Georgianne can catch it on the tape and she doesn't have to guess what you said if she needs
Guess
to
what you
report
said.
it.
You understand this?
My name's Mark Kalen. Actually, I'm a business owner in Paradise.
All right. And we use you in a consulting nature for our community relations and
Is there
helping
a
us.
conflict of interest?
No, not for this question. I've heard of commitment to excellence for years and years and years and years, being down in the East Bay for much of my sales career. And I just want to know if we have a problem in changing our color theme to silver and black.
You going with my team?
Pirate's head?
That would be the Raiders. That is their slogan, commitment to excellence.
I really have to defer to legal counsel on that. But as your PR consultant, I'd say probably not.
They're not very excellent.
That and just win,
That's a
baby,
poor
but they don't
standard.
follow that one either.
The Raiders, silver and black too?
The Raiders are silver and black. They're the only one.
The traders, I mean the.
So did you say there's no problem?
I think I said I decided not to get this recall.
Okay, anyone out there want to talk? Anyone wish to make some action?
Well, we have the
We have a motion and a second.
motion and
Oh,
a
did we?
second.
Oh.
The only thing I was wondering if we
Oh,
should
I
delay
forgot
it
about that.
until we get the bullet points, the best practices, or just, and I think it's probably safe enough to assume that they're there and that we can just drag them out of them and maybe bring it along a little bit later on.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 5 ayes.
Very good.
Passes unanimously. PID Public Committee Member Policy. Manager Barber, consider adopting proposed PID rules and regulations, policy section 2.27, public committee members as presented or as amended.
And a quick introduction for me. This was a committee item, and it was developed by the Administration and Personnel Committee, so I'll defer to them.
This is another one of the topics that we discussed and developed when we met a couple weeks ago. We currently have no type of code of conduct or policies and procedures, and basically code of conduct is probably the best way to reference this in regard to public members on a particular PID committee that are public members. We don't have any rules and regulations. We have public members serving on some of our committees who are not even residents in our service area. They are not ratepayers, because you can have a property owner up here who lives in Los Angeles, but he's one of our customers because he's paying our rates at his property. So we have no rules like that, and we took a lot of things into consideration, and we want to develop in certain committees public members and use their input. But for that, we believe that the public members, the committee believes, should have some responsibilities to the Paradise Irrigation District. They are serving basically at the pleasure of the board, even though we have no rules and regulations that say that now. But basically that's the way it is. And we just felt that it was appropriate at this time, in light of some things that have happened in the recent past, to put forth our expectations from these public members, give it a definition, get their buy-in to it, the reasonableness of it, and agree to conduct themselves in this particular manner. If a public member of our committees, present or future, should agree to continue working with us or work with us in the future under this code of conduct and choose to not follow the policies and procedures, the code of conduct, then it's up to the board to decide what to do with that public member. It would not be a single committee, an individual committee decision. It would not be just the president of the board decision. It would be the entire board's decision as to whether there were going to be any censure or other action taken. And the same thing that we have presented in here on the front end in appointing a public member to a committee, we feel that should be a board decision. So, with this...
Would you ask the public member to sign, I agree to abide by these rules?
We thought thumbprint and blood.
Blood oath.
Blood oath.
Blood oath.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
It's mostly about rolling it. If it's approved, we'll bring it to both committees that have public members, give them a copy of the policy so they understand it and they know their role.
We have one on the lake and and on the
Conservation.
conservation.
We have
And
two,
do we have-
two on the conservation.
Yeah.
Two on the lake too, I believe.
So is there another committee besides conservation?
I think that's it.
No, but
Oh.
in the community relations plan, there was potential for public members on that committee, although it hasn't been recommended by that committee to expand their purview yet. The availability is there.
Now, this doesn't address members of our committees who are
Friends of
represented.
PID.
There we go. Friends of PID. That would be like somebody who's currently on a park and rec committee board, or maybe even an employee, and they are on the lake committee, aren't they? Somebody like that. Now, I don't know whether that person is a resident in Paradise or not, but they bring the relationship between our two entities, special government forms, and so I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just a pure person from the public who has asked to be considered to participate in one of our committees. Or we go out and recruit public members and actively ask public to contact us and ask if they want to take this position on the Lake Committee or that one on the Water Conservation Committee or whatever it may be in the future.
Does this limit those members to be within the district?
No.
No.
That was something that came up for discussion, Bill, but we thought that at this particular point we would not make any recommendations in that area. It's one of those things that might be self-policing because typically, I guess, the people who are interested in the PID are living up here. They're participants. They got some skin in the game. But then there are some that are not. And in fact, this is a good time for me. Well, I won't regress on the other thing.
Well, one of the things that, getting back to our other item on the public committee, when we have a public member on a committee and the conservation one and the lake is kind of example with us, zero up conservation, when we're brainstorming whether we're putting on a workshop or any other area, I don't ever want to do anything to hinder that public member's feeling to enter into brainstorming. Their thought may not be worth a hoot as far as the rest of the committee is concerned and lose, but I wouldn't want to, because I think for the year that we've been functioning, we've had a very good conservation committee, and the reason is because of the diverse group of people that we have on it and their input into it. And that's why we got to be. But I'm just going down here. Let's go down to 3F. Under no circumstance, public or private would speak on behalf of the committee, and unless we give him permission. Now, when Ward was selected as the editor of the day, he got permission, and you actually read his article.
He did not get permission.
No, I'm not talking about the first letter, I'm talking about the second one.
He didn't get permission on the
No,
second.
he didn't get that either.
Yeah, he did, at the meeting.
He just sent his letter for review.
And then
He just told us he was gonna do it.
No, he told us
There you did it.
to do it. He never asked permission.
We said that we thought it was a good idea, but you asked to read his letter, and you did.
I read it, but I had no opportunity for input.
Oh, you didn't?
I was
Well, I
sent
have no
it.
problem.
This
I
is
thought
what's.
you did. In
I
fact,
got a heads up, which is better than nothing.
I
But
asked him if you had opportunity for input. Yeah, no. Okay, so,
I mean, I didn't have anything to change in it. I didn't have an issue with his letter.
yeah, you said it was good. 'Cause I remember I
It was
asked you.
fine,
Yeah, okay.
but it wasn't presented to me in a way where I thought I had any input opportunity.
Well, you see, even when I make a statement and have to do this, I only make it as myself, never the board. Because I'm just one person or one member of the board. You know, having run the electoral process and all that, it does give you a little more credibility, but I only speak as a board member, just one vote, type of a thing. And a committee member really doesn't even have that. But I don't want to do anything to keep people like Michael Spies, and we got another member who would like part of that, Jerry Minden, one of the leading nurserymen in the state of California. He's wondering why we don't have a nurseryman on there. He said, I would talk to you as a committee, you know, because of the fact, and I certainly wouldn't argue with him if he came up with an idea. It may not be worth the tinker's dam, and he'd find that out through the committee. Am I getting where I'm at, you know? That kind of input is what we need in here, you know, because he's really already done quite a bit for this.
That's input, but he's not a committee member, though.
No, but he would like to become one.
No.
If we see fit for that, you know. And I told him I just talked to them.
There's nothing in this policy that should hinder a member in any way, shape, or form in joining in and participating in the committee meetings. What this is
That's what I'm
doing
trying to
is
dig
trying
out
to
here.
keep
I
them
don't-
from
I don't think that there is,
going off on their own.
but they should not go off on their own.
Right.
I try not to go off on my own. Other than if somebody asks me, like Trevor or something like that, I just speak as one person.
You're seeing it on the news right now in Butte College with the girl that's made some remarks that weren't taken by the public very well, and I think it was maybe on her Facebook or something. And
Really, I'm not acquainted with
I
it.
watched,
That just happened recently?
Uh-huh.
How many things?
Yes.
I'll be getting in that chain here before long, I suppose, with that sitting
It's
there. But anyway,
not fared well for her, you know, in the public's eye, I think. So this kind of
Anyhow.
protects the public committee member from maybe overstepping their bounds and doing something that could be that. There's so many forms of media these days. There's, when we were talking with Mark, you know, there's so many forms, it's hard to even think of all the different forms of media that these people could go out on and make comments on that we might not know until 3 months down the line. And then someone says, oh yeah, I saw you on MySpace. And you're like, MySpace hasn't been around for, 6 years, but okay, but hey, you know.
I think one of the things, Stephen, of course, you were the president of the board at the time and formed the committee, but I really feel that all of the members were aware of their responsibility as a committee member, don't you?
It was implied, but we don't have anything in writing.
No, I know, we explained it pretty well.
Yeah.
And I have no problem, because I've had to do that more than once. In
Yeah.
fact, I'm signing a bunch of stuff in Oregon right now to sign that I will agree with these procedures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have no problem with that at all, and I don't think that's taking anything away from me.
No.
It just means that I understand the procedures of this thing. I'm doing a bunch of stuff with juvenile law.
Yep.
Is what I'm doing, you know, and all this stuff, all kinds of fingerprints. Well, anyway, so I have no problem with that.
Any public input?
Okay.
I'd like to comment on this thing too. So.
No? Okay.
G, public members shall not communicate with any media about PID committee business and shall not identify themselves as a PID committee member when sharing their own personal perspective on any issue and through any medium, including electronic and social media. This prevents the appearance of speaking in an official capacity on behalf of PID. I think this is a wee bit of an overkill. I'm surprised you don't say speaking to a neighbor or a friend in a conversation about whatever the thing happens to be, that's of interest to the public, and this guy happens to be, or her, on this committee and voices their opinion.
Well, that is speaking their opinion, not a PID opinion. That is speaking their opinion.
I think F covers G.
No,
Isn't it?
no.
Under no circumstances, public or private, shall a public member of a PID committee represent them as a speaking on behalf of the committee?
That's
Right.
speaking on behalf of the committee. G is speaking on behalf of PID.
Oh,
I think that
Even though you associate the two
I don't like
things.
the idea of saying, well, you better not go to the media.
Well, how is this going to be enforced?
by the board,
But how is it judged?
by removing a member if the
No,
board
no,
feels
I mean, really, seriously. Now, somebody.
what I'm talking about.
How is it going to be judged?
That's what I'm talking about, Bill. If we have somebody who's serving as a public member on a committee, and they break the rules, and they go and they mouth off or give their own opinion, or make something that sounds like it's the board members from the committee speaking about this, then it's up to us as the 5 board members to determine whether the severity of that. We'll talk to the committee member perhaps, and then make a decision. And if it's egregious enough, and if 3 out of 5 say, we're not happy at all with that and think you just thumbed your nose at the policy, and if 3 people say, we want you removed from the committee, then that person will be removed from the committee.
Since I've been on the board, this is the only occasion has been one that I'm aware of where we've had a problem with this one individual, and that seems to be what he does, wherever he's at. But how about defining on number 3? What is the best interests of PID? Who's going to define that?
I'll be happy to. Would you give me the power to do that?
No,
Okay. Then it'll be the board, Bill.
that it wasn't in the interests of PID after the fact.
Yes.
So in this way, it sounds sort of like, are we putting a muffler on public comment by these public members, which
Yes.
we've only had one in the last, I don't know how many
Yes.
years I've been on the board, we've only had one member that has ever created a problem.
And that's why policy gets made, Bill. When issues come up and problems come up, then the governing body says we need to make provisions for
This
this.
is a tempest in a teapot. You've got a whole page of regulations and everything here to make sure that they act in the best interest of the PID. And the public member is supposed to bring issues to us and give us their opinions on issues.
That's in
And
3C.
they may disagree with the PID policy to do that.
Certainly they can, and they should in the committee meeting.
And then what would happen if somebody on the committee objected to what they said and said, I want to bring this, you've violated this rule. In other words, this thing is pretty.
Wrong, Bill. It says in 3C that the public can do exactly that. We want public members, board members, everybody to speak their true feelings in the committee meetings. And these are almost all committee
but let's
meetings
say
open to the
They
public.
speak at the meeting, they go out and they talk to their friends, and their friends give them input outside the meetings, and you actually, is an attempt here to muffle them, and I just think it's not worth the
I
trouble.
think it's to give them. Okay, Mark.
Direction.
Okay.
Mark, correct me. Did you have something? You kind of put some input on this.
Yeah.
Okay. So, just like Ken asked you earlier, and I won't make you stand up at the podium, but
I will.
you will.
It's for Georgianne. So she
Okay.
needs it
So
on
you
the
will.
board.
So.
It's not.
Okay, George will, so sorry, yeah, you're gonna stand at the podium.
Board of our meetings.
But just like when we were looking at the last issue, okay, without some definition of what we expect, then there's no definition at all, and anything can and probably will happen at some point in time.
I agree with that. I think that you would not bring a new employee to the organization without giving them an orientation. You wouldn't bring a new board member on board without doing the same. It's a responsibility and a new field for someone coming from the public and serving on a committee. So I think it makes sense that you give them your expectations so they'll know what the rules of the game are.
Would you agree that if I was maybe a person coming in from the public and I thought, well, I want to be on that committee, and then I read this, and thought, boy, I just love talking to everybody, and I want to, say my piece, and maybe this isn't the right venue for me. Then maybe I should comment as a public member and not be on the public committee. This kind of gives me some guidelines to know whether or not I should do what I'm thinking: be a public member or be a committee member. A public committee member, or should I just be someone from the
I
public?
think that was the purpose of what was being written.
Exactly.
And I think that would certainly have helped us avoid the situation we had a few weeks ago. And I would like to give the gentleman the benefit of the doubt and say that he probably didn't have a clue what was going on.
Yeah.
And I think now that he's been through that, I don't think that would happen again. But I need to see it happen in the future with other public members and committees.
What happened?
Well, there's a lot at stake when someone speaks erroneously to the public on behalf of the organization.
Exactly. That's so bad.
Let me clarify. It wasn't what he wrote as the editor for a day that is the issue. The issue is he went into the Paradise Post, and the editorial board gave him the opportunity to write an editorial on behalf of PID. That's how he said it. And he said yes. He never came back to the committee. He never came back to me. He never thought that if he's going to write an editorial on behalf of PID, and that's how it was represented, that PID should have the ability to review it, approve it, cross-check it, whatever the fact is, before that ever happens.
See,
with no malice
the part I read, I took it that he was just a public person, but I thought he was all wet. He didn't know what he was talking about. That's the way I took it, because I didn't think he was talking as being on the committee.
There was a letter to the editor that he sent in previous to that.
What?
Yep.
Oh, did he put it on the bottom? Oh,
Yes.
I missed it.
Yeah.
I was upset because I didn't.
The
agree
first
with what he said.
the first letter to the editor was just a letter to the editor, like any of us could write. The second one,
No.
he was,
Except, what did it
the one
say
that
at
was-
the end? Ward Habriel, public member of PID
That was his
committee.
No,
I didn't just.
but he signed that, and perhaps he shouldn't. But it was just a letter to the editor. Now the second one is when they invited him to be an editor for the day. Yeah, and I really
Representing
thought,
PID.
and I remember you asked him that you would like to look at the letter before, and I just assumed that you were having input into it.
Nope.
Well, George, I think you erred.
Without
You
the
should have got on his case if you said anything wrong with it. Now it's interesting on the first.
well, did you have any policies to go by in order to enforce that, George?
He didn't have a
Okay, there we go.
We had no policy, but the first letter.
there's your policies
and
to
Trevor
enforce
will
it.
Get your put on this.
He won't give it.
They shut off. No, I know it. He's pretty sharp. But they have a number of words, and your computer shuts them off. Because I've seen that before. And at the end of his letter was a whole, the first one that got all you people so upset, me too. It cut it off. It just stopped. It didn't even end with a period. It just stopped printing because it hit the 250 or whatever words it is. That's what happened.
And I think
I wouldn't expect, but that smile is almost like a yes on here. And that's happened before. My brother-in-law is a professional printer, 60 years in the business in Los Angeles, and he just reads both the ER and the Post and just is dumbfounded at what he reads, because he set all that kind of stuff, on this. And he'll show me different articles. But anyway.
Okay. So does anyone want to make the motion? I think we beat this to death.
Yeah, we have beat it to death.
But
But one of the things, let me go back to the committee, because we just put a big thing on that was apparently quite a success we'll talk about on here. Now, as a committee member, myself or any other ones on here, and the neighbor comes out and asks the person about it, I would think that it would be all right for that committee member to say, we've been discussing that in the committee, and I'll take your thoughts back. Because if I have somebody talk to me as a John Q. citizen, which they do every day, all day, off and on, different days, I'll say, well, I'll take it back to the board.
But you're a PID director.
Yeah,
that's
I realize that.
That's a little different status than a public member.
I would say that I will take it back to this board.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I see no out of line for the committee member saying that he would take it back to the committee.
Not a problem.
No,
Okay, good.
it's not a matter of trying to stifle them. It's a matter of channel your procedure on how you're going to release
I know
and
that
take
he would
in
have-
information.
I know that he would have no problem with it, but I would have no problem outlining what we expect of a board member, public board member, and have Jerry Minden, if we decide to let him come aboard, sign the thing. I don't think he'd have any problem. I just signed a bunch of stuff yesterday in Orville. I had no problem.
Okay, motion?
I'll make it my deal. I propose that we adopt the PID Rules and Regulations Policy Section 2.27, Public Committee Members, as presented
On
to
the
the
amended,
board.
on the amended paper.
Yeah, on the amended paper with the little tiny piece
That
of
would be
blue.
amended.
Excuse me?
That would be as amended.
As amended. Okay, thank you.
We amended, we haven't amended it.
Well,
Yeah.
no, it was amended on this. When Bill read it,
Right here.
he read it from his iPad, I think, or an old.
iPad, but
Or your
we've
packet.
got a new copy tonight
Yeah.
that did amend the last
Right.
sentence. I found it after I talked about
That's
it.
Yeah.
the one we're voting on.
It's a very small.
All it did was break a long sentence into two.
Yeah.
That was a request.
That is the policy that I've made the motion on.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little more about G.
All those in favor say.
I'm not ready to vote. I agree with it here on, it says, sharing their own personal perspective on any issue through any medium, electronic or social, appearance of speaking. But I think we need to have something like this in writing, and at our next committee meeting, take it back, and I'd like to fly it off of them to see what they think about it. Because I would hate to lose the committee members that we have. And I'm going after another one for the Lake Committee with George's approval and the committee.
Not my
I'm trying to get a forester. No, you
Board
said
approval.
this. I'm trying to get a forester out of SPI because, hell, they own a large part of our 12 square mile watershed. See, so it makes sense to get them on there. They also have a foundation that they give money to different things. And they don't even know we exist as far as what we're doing. They really don't.
That wouldn't be a public member. That would be a Friends of PID member.
Yeah. That'd be somebody like Parks and Rec.
There's a thin line between a friend and a public member. Okay. You're thinking of John Q. Citizen. I realize that. But anyway.
Okay. I personally, if somebody wants to be on the committee and objects to this, I would say we probably don't want them on the committee. Anyway, roll call, please.
Director Corolla,
Yes.
Vice President Hunt,
Yes.
Director Fletcher,
Yes.
Director Kellogg,
No.
President Benson.
Yes. Passes 4 to 1 with Kellogg voting no. Okay. Director's request to change election requirements, requested by Director Hunt.
Was I busy last month?
Yeah, you were busy. Discussion and review regarding the method of electing directors.
I'm really hoping some mortgages go through this next month, you know.
Yeah, keep me busy. That's exactly right. That's a good point. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, so I'll just hit the highlighted points. I actually saw an article in the newspaper today with a little blurb about this. And this is something that has just kind of nagged at the back of my brain for several years here on the PID. And I will be quite frank, I was naive when I first came on board and was facing that first election. I just thought that the people that I would be campaigning to and that would be voting for me were going to be residents of Division 1. But I found out that that's not so. We don't have a situation set up to where we divide it up by PID divisions and take votes that way. So everybody in all 5 divisions votes for me or another person if we happen to be up for a contest for Division 1. So I gave some rather far-fetched examples. I said that I could not get one single vote from anybody in Division 1, yet win the election to represent people in Division 1 because I would get enough votes in Divisions 2, 3, 4, and 5 where I would get the majority of the votes. That's a possibility. The alternative is also a possibility. I could have 100% of the votes from the people that I'm supposed to represent in Division 1 and lose the election because people in Divisions 2, 3, 4, and 5 voted for somebody else and that person got the majority. So it just seemed at odds with me saying that I'm representing folks in Division 1. Personally, I think I represent the entire district's constituency wherever they're living. I don't see any difference between somebody living in Bill's district or Larry's district or my district. I represent the PID as a whole, and since the vote is already at large, I think that we need to just change the way that we run from a division-oriented basis to letting the public know that we represent them all and that when we run for election or re-election, that it is all open voting, which means that I would not have to reside in Division 1, nor would an opponent who wants to run for an election at the time that I'm up for election. So I presume, without knowing the details, and I don't know, George, if you have details that you can bring forth at this time, but I would presume that in a year where there are 3 people running for office, then maybe there's 5 candidates that make it onto the ballot, and the top 3 vote getters, regardless of percentage, but the top 3 vote getters would be the 3 directors elected. In a year where there are 2 directors running for, when it's 2 that are running for election, and there are 4 people on the ballot or 3 on the ballot, whatever it may be, then once again it's just going to be those 2 top vote getters will be the representatives for the PID board.
Does this mean that we change the eligibility requirements for the board?
Yes.
That all the board members would be at large, there wouldn't be any more divisions?
Yes, that's my intent.
There would still be divisions, but you wouldn't be elected from that division. Or would we do away with divisions?
There would be no need for divisions.
No need for boundaries, okay. I think. Yeah. Public can contact whichever of the board members they want to contact, whichever division they happen to live in.
There wouldn't be any
to help them.
Yeah,
well, that's very good, Larry.
in a short period of time, this division thing would go by the boards.
Yeah, be vanilla. So it was just something, I don't have any great convictions about it, but it was something that I thought was appropriate. And since it takes such a long time to get done, the longer I just sat around and the more years I let go by in stewing on it. And like Sepp said, I didn't have enough work to do over the last month or 2. So
apparently.
So I turned my attention to some projects and PID business and decided I'd just kind of run this up the flagpole and see what the board thought about it. Because certainly it's to the board's pleasure as to whether we try to change something like this. From staff side, is there any input you or Dustin could give us about the legality of it and what we would do?
I can tell you, since I didn't know the pleasure of the board and this was your request, I spent about 5 minutes with Dustin. He punched up a couple things to make it appear that this is a legitimate way of doing it by a vote of the people. It could happen. We tried to contact the elections office without a lot of success. We don't expect it would add a lot to an election cost when you already had an election. Just one more question. So that's as far as we took it. At this point, it looks like it's a way. Obviously, before it became formal, Dustin would have to do some research and get it formulated correctly, but it wasn't worth diving into that at this point until we knew the pleasure of the board.
Does any of the directors live outside their division boundaries?
I think not. I think everybody lives inside their division boundaries now.
So what do you want? Direction from the board? Whether we want to pursue this or not?
if you're interested in pursuing it, I think you need to invest some time with me. We need to research it, make sure it can be done. I think it can, but as George said, we spent about 5 minutes flipping through the water code. If it can't be done legally, there's always the option to get special legislation, which itself is a somewhat costly and time-consuming process to sponsor legislation, that is. There's also a lot of nuance. There's a lot of different ways to formulate how you conduct an election. And, I represent irrigation districts, water districts, public utility districts, sanitary districts. I have a lot of different entity types, and each entity type has different possible powers with respect to how do they conduct their elections. So, for example, a public utility district it's not divisions, they call it seats. And let's say 3 seats are up for election. Well, it's not pure at large. You have to, if you're a candidate, you designate, I want to go for seat 1. And maybe somebody wants to run against them for seat 1. So you're not representing a territory. You don't have to be a resident of a division, but you do have to declare your candidacy for a seat. And theoretically, somebody could run against you for that seat. So it's
unlike Ken proposed, where it was the top 3 votes would then get the 3 seats.
That's pure at large.
Yeah,
That's
what
what I'm
I mean.
interested in. That's like the school board.
That's
is
what
that
I mean,
way,
so-
isn't it?
So
Town council.
the method I'm suggesting is not
Town council.
There's many different methods. You can go. This district is currently at large from division.
I just tried to keep it
You could go
simple.
at large by division, where your division actually does do the voting for that.
Well, it's my
Interestingly
understanding.
enough, we found out through some research, Georgiana.
Thank you,
had,
Georgiana.
Was that in the 20s?
1941?
1941, up till 41, it was elected by division.
People in your division.
People in your division voted for you to be on the seat, and they changed it by going to the vote of the people to this at large that you have today.
Oh, they did it that way, huh? So it can be done.
So I
Now,
just
I had heard that the state was thinking about passing legislation to eliminate the division thing, but for some reason it never got written.
Well, the California Voting Rights Act, it doesn't really apply in this district. It applies in areas where there's racially polarized voting. So this is more of a real large city problem where you may have a part of town that is minority dominated, and that minority cannot elect a seat. So their vote is kind of diluted. And the California Voting Rights Act says that if you do have racially polarized voting, you actually have to go to an at-large voting system. So that's probably what you're referring to. So to sum it up, I think we would need to do some research. I could set out the options. I could work with staff. There's election cost considerations. If you went to an at-large by division, that's going to be more expensive than other methods.
I'm only recommending at large.
But we may not only want to consider that, I guess. You'd want to see all the available options, wouldn't you?
No?
What would you be thinking?
Well, I got my mind made up.
One path.
What would you
I am of one
estimate the cost for researching that out would be for your fee, company's fee?
It's not, maybe 8 hours, a couple $1,000.
Couple thousand, okay.
I think, some of this work has been done by Bill Spruance and others before me, so it's reviewing their work and building upon it.
You said in all the entities that you represent, most of the water districts, though, excluding the sewage district and other things that you entities that you do, most of those are by division.
No. Water districts are totally different. They vote, it's landowner voting, so you don't have to be a resident.
Yeah.
This is a voter district, residency. Water districts are totally different. Richvale Irrigation District has the same, it's an irrigation district, same entity, but they have special legislation that allows them to be a landowner voting district.
Wow.
So you don't have to be a resident in the district. They also only have 3 directors. So every entity is different.
Okay.
You own more than
I
one
was
piece
just
of
trying to get.
property? Do you get to vote more than once?
Yeah, it's usually 1 acre, 1 vote.
So if you have
10,000
5 acres, you
acres,
get
10,000 votes. Wow.
Well, see, that's
those-
the way it used to be in the old days, is only landowners could vote.
As I understand,
And then, yeah.
as I understand it, on that kind of election, that's a John Q. citizen, if they don't own property, they don't vote. Do they vote too?
In theirs, yes, not in ours.
And yeah,
No, I mean, that kind of
the
a
water district, yes.
Nope, yeah.
An irrigation district for strictly ag, they have to be a landowner to vote.
No, a typical irrigation district has the same rules as Paradise Irrigation District, but Richvale has special legislation
Okay, yeah.
that makes them different.
But
That's
they have
funny.
to be landowner there.
Because really, we're a water district, not an irrigation district.
Well, and then there's the caveat, an irrigation district that is just ag, you have to be a landowner in the division to be a board member, but since we have over 3,000 connections of drinking water, that's what puts it to only needing to reside in your division
okay.
and not be a landowner.
Okay, because we have more than the 3,000.
Hookups, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you could have somebody that's a tenant of the division
Yeah.
run for the board.
Right.
So if you had a board member that was a renter, they're locked. Their only opportunity to rent is in their division for the life of their term.
But now when we go for this Prop 218, it will only go to the meter. The ballot that we have on 218 will only go to,
Landowner.
That goes to the
landowner.
APN, yeah.
or the
Yep.
meter.
Yep.
Okay, so if we have someone that has 2 or 3 parcels and 3 meters, they would get 3 votes?
Yeah, each landowner was going to get a vote. So
I mean, it's the
Yeah,
same
it's
land,
a
it's the
per
same
meter
owner,
vote.
but it's 3 parcels with 3 different meters.
yeah, and it's a very interesting question when you have multiple owners of a property. So say you have a apartment
Yeah.
complex
Okay,
with 4
yeah.
tenants in common.
Yeah.
It gets very complex.
Wow.
What happens if 3 oppose and 1 supports, or 1 doesn't vote? What do you do?
Or 2-2, do they get thrown out?
2-2.
If they abstain, is that an affirmative?
Well, do we need a motion or just a?
No, I would appreciate a motion and a board vote to authorize further investigation by legal counsel and staff into this change.
I'll make it again. I move we authorize further action by staff and legal counsel to further define the parameters of making this potential change of the way that we are elected.
Is there a second?
I'll second it also.
You have 2 meters?
Nobody second it?
If I voted for it, it would be selfishly because I might like to move out of Division 5. See, and it would make it much easier for me because I can go anywhere on the ridge, because I never plan on moving off the ridge, so they throw me out on the side of Sawmill Peak. But anyway,
And I hear you, Doug, but it's not selfish. You're really sitting there as a board member, looking at future board members.
I understand
And what
that.
is the opportunity for
We
the
see-
public to
take
take
myself, I think Ken alluded to this. To my knowledge, and there may be a big problem, but I'm not aware of it, the way it brought to my attention, it Division 5. But one of that I'm concerned with, is, other than for the wastewater recycling, is Division A, or Zone A, needs a pipeline badly coming out of the water treatment plant. This is coming from our experts in the field, and So I'm more concerned about that than I am what's happening in Division 5.
Right, we're concerned about the district as a
I
whole.
realize that.
And the other thing, the reason that I brought this up is because in talking to George one day, and this could have been a year ago or a year and a half ago, but talking about people that were interested in running, I know when it was. It was back before Rick Hall, when Rick Hall was still here. And, just if there is a good quality candidate for a seat on the board, and that person lives in Division 1, and I'm in Division 1, but I'm not up for election, but other divisions are. Well, and you get mediocre candidates, or you get nobody. This quality person is prevented from running when he's there to serve the entire population of Paradise. And I think that it just was anti-productive. Trying to keep a little fiefdom just for myself. That's not my intent. My intent is to make it open to everybody. Open to all the public. We should write that down real big. Thank you.
Big grin there. Yeah, I guess it died. Okay, move on.
Thanks, guys, for discussing it.
System to judge capital project priorities requested by Director Kellogg. Discussion of possible system analysts to capital projects. You're going to have to explain that one to me, Bill.
I've done some of my homework. I got on the internet and did Wikipedia, free encyclopedia. My daughter-in-law, who's a CPA, got me this book, Accounting for Dummies. So I've done a little work there, but really what I did, I told Kevin about it, and I said, I sure appreciate your help on this thing, because he's the expert, and I'm just the guy bringing it up. And it came out of a farm meeting I went to, and a farmer got up and talked about the return on investment and how he marks, and then I got thinking about it, and I said, well, geez, could we use that to prioritize our capital investments? We have $40 million worth of capital investments on a list for the district to consider right now. And so we need to go through and use some system on a financial basis, on a business basis. Do these projects return something? All return on investment is that. Now with that, I'll let Kevin explain the words and the technical thing and all that, because I'm not adequate to do that.
Oh, no. Well, return on investment, I think, is basically what you put into it and what you get out of it. A good example of a huge return on investment that the district's done in the past is the Magalia bypass. You have a thing that is automatically saving the district money. There's a return that you can visually touch and see on that project. There's also kind of return on investment when it's not so easily touching and feeling. That would be a pipeline that's saving us water. How much is that water worth? Well, you can kind of put a number on it, but truly it's a long-term investment that you're seeing that maybe you don't have it in storage on a really dry year. Or you don't have to upgrade your treatment plant because you're now not having to produce as much water because it's not all going down the river. The meter reading project, what's the return on investment on that? There's leaks that we're having. There's conservation efforts made by people. It's hard to put a tangible number on that. There's a return on that also. But there's also a return on investment from a negative standpoint too. A good example of that is the processed water recycle project. It's do nothing. It's not do it. What's the return on investment? Well, it's that money that you're going to be fined, right? That's your return on investment. So there's a negative return on investment too that you have to look at. And a good example, and I thought about this after I talked to Bill, is farmers. Air Quality Control Board is now requiring farmers to put these HOOS devices that we did a long time ago on their tractors. What's a return on investment to them? Well, nothing really, other than they're not going to be fined when the Air Quality Control Board comes out and goes, well, why is this tractor blowing smoke all over with no device on it? So they're having to make those same type of decisions that we have to make too. My thoughts on this is if this is something the board wants to develop a policy or procedures based on how to prioritize capital projects, I think it needs to go to the Finance Committee. I think this is great Finance Committee work, that the Finance Committee can kind of develop a procedure, develop an ideas, develop ways of making calculations on how they want to prioritize capital investments, how those capital investments and when they're purchased or how they're purchased. I think that's something that the Finance Committee can work on, bring it back to the board, get board input. If the board wants something different or wants to go differently, we can go back on that. Implement that into the budgeting process. One of my ideas is if we go to a rate structure that's high in consumption, then maybe you wait to see where the revenue generation for that year has happened, using that excess revenue or excess reserves to maybe fund capital projects based on that year, maybe forego capital projects if the revenue's not there for that year. So maybe having a little more tangible money associated with that, maybe building reserves that maybe we don't do any capital projects. So that's my 2 cents. I can answer any questions.
I can add that pipe replacement there's not a return on investment calculation, but it's done by leak history and leak data. So we already prioritize our pipelines based on the leakiest pipes get replaced first. So we don't do the financial unless we're trying to get a grant, which we have done. But just to make you aware, our pipelines are already categorized that way.
Prioritized.
We're prioritized.
Just like the processed water project is not going to give us any positive, return on investment. It is saving us. Well, it's saving us the
Pick
negative.
the right project.
Yeah.
We'll gain 600 acre-feet of storage in a reservoir.
But moreover, what was it? 10,000 per day was the fine, wasn't it? Something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think the fine to do nothing was 10,000 per day, if I remember reading the original referendum on it. So yes, so that's a huge negative return on investment we don't want to experience.
Right. But George did bring up a good positive of it, and it's something that maybe the board can think about currently. Is okay, you're going to be presented with multiple projects. Which one not only gets us out of the negative, but which one does bring positive to that? And then what is the value of that positive? Is the value of that positive 600 acre feet? Well, what is 600 acre feet worth to us? Well, in a dry year, it's worth a lot of money. In a wet year, it might not be as worth as much money. So trying to tangibly identify, okay, I'm putting these inputs in and I'm getting these out is very difficult in something like that.
I think it's too much effort for what we already do. Every year at budget process, we have all of these projects going on. We have to decide how much money we're going to spend. We take a look and say, well, this is what we have. We can't spend more. And so, during that process, the board cuts back this. We're not going to buy that piece of equipment. We're not going to put up that second pipeline going up to Division A or whatever that thing is up there. So we do that all the time. We've done it for years. And we don't make any decision around here unless we have thoroughly thought it through. We've got staff's recommendations. We've got the board ideas. And we do this settling down effect and juggling. And then we say, okay, well, we aren't going to do that. We aren't going to do this. We aren't going to do that. We'll do these first now. Well, this one, what we thought we were going to do, we're going to put it off another year. We do that now. At the very end of the day, after we do that as a board, if Kevin says, well, you guys still haven't done enough, we are going to run out of money in 18 months. But we have to do these things. Okay, well now we have a different way to go. Now we're talking about rate increases, because if we can't cut back our cost, we're going to have to cover operational expenses. And then we move into the 218 rate process. So in my opinion, we handle this now. We've handled it efficiently and effectively with input from staff over the last several years that I've been here. And I think it works pretty good. I think that this additional piece of information isn't going to be the pivotal deciding factor in us making a decision about what project we're doing and what we're prioritizing on. So says Ken.
I just think it's a tool, according to what I've read, it's used in most large businesses to judge capital expenditures. It can be done fairly easily on most of these. It's not an involved formula or anything else. It's what I understand of it. And it does give you some judgment call or information that can help you make a decision on a different basis than we have been. And I think I know we're spending a lot of time on a lot of different capital projects, and we need to tone it down somehow and just decide on priorities. And some capital projects I thought were gone away because they didn't pass the test of making any money to pay for themselves. That's what return on investment is. And all of a sudden we're doing work on them again. And I'm going, whoa, wait a minute. We need to run this thing a little bit better. But I also asked when I did this that no action be taken. To me, this is education of the whole board on this return on investment, and you can find it easy enough for definitions and stuff, and talk to Kevin about it. I don't expect any decisions tonight, or I expected Ken's reply, but I didn't expect any decisions by any other board members or even comments for that matter. This, to me, is something you think about, give it some consideration, get educated about it, and if you don't think it's good, well, that's the end of it. But I think it could be a very valuable tool for our board to use.
One additional item to consider is we're dealing with an essential public service. So I agree with you that to the extent you can, we ought to be doing projects that either pay for themselves or there's offsetting benefits. But you can't strictly look at it like General Motors would, or a for-profit corporation.
Or PG&E.
Or PG&E, because we're providing an essential public service. And there may be projects that we undertake to provide that public service that really don't pencil out. But, I was trying to think of an example, maybe a line breaks in a cul-de-sac that serves one landowner, and it's going to be a real expensive job to replace it. And if you really sat down and weighed the cost and benefit, it probably wouldn't pencil out, or at least it wouldn't pencil out for many, many years. But we would never say we're not going to do that project because
I'm not asking for it to be a hard, fast rule. I'm asking for it to be something we use as a discussion and consider these projects, that we consider these kind of reports. And Kevin and I talked about that. We said there's intrinsic values that you cannot put dollars and cents on, that it won't work under this formula, some of the projects we do. That's one of them, what you just talked about. So I'm not saying we use it on everything we do in the district. I'm saying we use it to judge some of these capital investments we're talking about that are in the millions. The list is in the millions, and we need to go through there and say, use some sort of tool. This is one of the tools that's possible to use to go, okay, this thing is not going to pay, but this one over here would make a return and do these things, and here's the intrinsic values and so forth on it. So that's what I'm bringing up, because I think right now our list of capital investments and everything is way out of control, and the district doesn't have the money, and I'd just love to go to tell the ratepayers that what Ken's talking about. Well, we'll just raise the rates and that'll take care of it. And I'm saying we need to do some management on this. That's it.
What project?
Sounds like you haven't managed it in the past, Bill.
Bill, what projects are we doing that you thought were dead?
Miocene Canal.
Drought supply?
What the heck is
drought supply?
Attorney's bill.
The drought supply?
Yeah.
You thought
You want to give up doing drought supply, Bill?
No.
Yeah, put that in the paper.
No, I think that drought supply would be something that would fail if you do an ROI on it, and there's others that would make.
Bill, it's so simple to do the ROI. You got your book for dummies there. Why don't you do one and bring it to the board next month and let us hear it?
You know, you're sort of rude and caustic, and I think maybe you need to work on your gentleman business a little bit.
I don't need to, Bill.
Okay, let's get back to business. My theory on this is, I think that we are doing this without calling what it is. I think Kevin and George
Well, I
use
appreciate
this all the time.
All right. I appreciate you listening to me and have something to say on it.
Right. Okay, committee reports. Water Conservation Committee.
Right.
Corolla and Fletcher.
Well, as chair, I'll start out.
Yeah.
Chapman, that you blend in. Our last meeting was after our water conservation workshop, and we all felt, and the comments that we got back, that it was a very beneficial, well-accepted workshop, and things went really well. I've been receiving nothing but great compliments from a number of professional people throughout the community and our end of the state. And in fact, today I got a call from Tammy, who's the general manager of the Chico Normax store, and she would like to invite us, George PID, she's inviting Calwater and South Feather to a thing on the 27th of May. They're going to have about 8 or 9 key companies on water conservation at their store in Chico, big barbecue. And it'd be no cost to us, so we can set up a booth if we wanted to. I guess the other 2 companies are going to be setting up to get it out, or at least participate in the meeting, whether we want to have some staff do that or whatever it is. So we can talk about that at our committee meeting. And I know Ewing, who I've all, for my years when I used to buy a lot of stuff for home, I always called him Ewing. Well, I found out different. It's Ewing Company now, quite a large, well-accepted company, and they're really fantastic. Did Gary Wheeler contact, I think he was contacting Tammy about getting pictures. I think she did. I think she touched bases with him. And so it was highly regarded. And the reason it was is because we did a lot of brainstorming with the people in the committee and planned the thing and put it together and had a diverse group of presenters, and George and the staff started it off with a great lunch right in there, and how could we lose on this type of a thing? I think one of the things that we're going to want to plan, and perhaps real quick, would be some type of a workshop for the residents of the community. And I was hoping that we could do that at this next conservation committee. We wouldn't have time to bring it back to the board because it's a day before. It's a day? No, is it a week before?
No, it's a week before.
It's a week before, so we'll have time to bring that back to you for our April 8th meeting. Sepp, anything you'd like to add?
That workshop was excellent, and I think we got we had some comment cards that we put out, and I think there was there was a few people that commented to me that for a first try at this, we did a really, really good job. So George's staff got some food and had it set up, and somehow we got a desk rearrangement out of the whole deal, and it was all said and done. But a lot of positive feedback for them. But I'm with Doug. I think that the next thing we should look at is something for the residents, especially with upcoming implementation of some kind of drought program.
If I may clarify for the record,
Yeah, go ahead.
the reason we served lunch at this event is we were trying to entice business members that have businesses in landscape, etc., and we're asking them to take 4 hours of time that they normally would be making money and come and listen to our stuff. So the least we could do is provide them a lunch in exchange for them giving up their work time to be able to come to that event.
Fortunately, the 27th proved to have a little bit of rain in it, so it was. We weren't making them give up a nice, bright, sunny day when they could be getting all kinds of things done. It was one of those days that was.
So it did work.
And
It worked out well.
As always, I'd like to really, on behalf of the committee, thank Georgiana and Mickey and the rest of the staff that did an awesome job putting together and all the emails and the typing and everything else. Georgiana, thank you very much. You made it very professional in this particular right. And I would imagine, Shep, we'll come back to the April 8th with a tentative date for a residence workshop, particularly since we're in this drought situation. Would you agree, would you agree with that?
I agree.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Okay. Next one is Community Relations Committee with Hunt being the chairperson, Kellogg the other member.
Yeah, the Community Relations Committee. We met March 5th, and we had a big agenda. In regard to the drought response, at that point where I think my notes are saying George told us at the time we had 71% in storage after a big rain event. So it was looking like it was going to take off some of the real crushing problems that we were otherwise looking at this year. We decided to slow down on developing a revised rate package until we get see what more events do, the rain events do, because the storms up to then kind of helped us out a little bit. We want to focus on volunteer restrictions and conservation for the time being.
Voluntary restrictions?
Yes. Focus on, what did I say? Volunteer. Yeah.
Volunteer restrictions.
That's because I can't read my writing.
Okay. Voluntary restrictions.
Voluntary restrictions,
okay.
Right, and conservation. Anyhow, specifically, we want to gear up the ParadiseSavesWater.com website. This was presented by Mark Dale. I don't know would you like to say anything about that, about what you've been developing for us here? It's a website that we want to have linkage to directly from our website, with specifically in regard to the drought and this, and getting people right to a particular point where they can find something that may help them. Like I was having dinner last night, I guess, and the guy asked me, "What are you guys doing at PID about the drought in the water?" And I said, "Well, we're going to be looking at cutbacks, and maybe they'll be at about the 25% range. We aren't sure yet. We're getting ready to announce on April 1st, etc." And he said, "Wow," he says, "what do you do with people who've already, for years have been conserving in water-wise usage, and you turn on the tap and you turn it off and you just don't waste water?" I said, "Well, it's going to be tough." But we're going to try it with voluntarily getting people. We're going to try to do things at the PID where we may have smart water-saving devices that we'll either fund or just point citizens toward. I mentioned one or two to him, and we kind of concluded our conversation. But place for the public to go and look to see what help we can give them in regard to the drought. Another point. We talked about the Oops door hangers. I don't know if have you guys seen these? Yes? No? Yeah? Okay. Talked about the Oops door hangers so the public can call into PID on a special phone number, basically to tattletale on their neighbor, and if they're wasting water, so they don't have to go up and confront them and get in their face and have an uncomfortable position. But if they see an unwise water usage, then PID can dispatch somebody to go out there and either talk to the neighbor or hang a door hanger on there.
Is this something we have or a prototype?
Is this?
They're printed.
They're available now, printed now. They changed the shark that I had on there. Yeah. To the guppy. Next topic, which the committee did not recommend to go forward on, was advertisement at the local theater. The movie advertisement is for various reasons. We went through quite a lot of it, but we decided it wasn't the best place for us to be spending our our hard-earned money, and decided we would not recommend it to the board. Corporation Yard Open House, we're staying with the scheduled date. That's really the only thing that came out of that point. Potential policy, committee member public information. Yeah, we had, this committee, of course, has no recommendations for that, and we covered it earlier, so really there's nothing for me to bring up there about that. Cedar Creek Community Relations Consultant Work Product Review. They gave us a little typed up kind of a division report here, like we get from the treatment plant or from the laying pipe in the ground. But he just gave us a little report about what they've done and what they are still doing, what they've done in various areas for Kids Fishing Day, for the landscape workshop, for the drought conservation, a monthly newsletter that they've been working on, press releases in regard to the water taste and the odor, items that they had in process. So it was nice to have a little pulse on where our money is going and what they've been doing with us using them in this particular job. Community Relations Committee topic, key messages and how they're used. Let me see if I've got... My notes aren't, we had too much business that day. I got to the point here about this one. Can you help me out, Mark? Do you know where I am? Key messages and how they're used from our roadmap to excellence. We're managing our water conservative to minimize the impact on a potential drought. Don't be afraid to conserve water now. These are the key type messages, I think. You will not be punished with our restriction techniques. That was one thing that George brought up some time ago, is that, people started talking about the drought in September, October, November, December. 2013 was the driest year on record. And people, we want to encourage them to go ahead and cut back, because we aren't going to take these recent cutbacks from the people who moved into the conservation earlier and penalize them and say, well, now you got to go 25% off of that, what you've already reduced. So we'll be reaching back for a base of water usage to look for the 25% reduction or whatever the number is. Is that can you help me out a little bit more on your...
Yeah, with the key messages, that's what we were talking about, and that's a very important part of our community relations plan. Essentially, what we talked about at the meeting, we started to talk about how we develop key messages and how they're used. And essentially that's so that various people can speak with the correct information on behalf of the idea that we're all speaking with the same voice in certain areas where policy's been determined. We're not confusing the public, but we're able to educate the public more effectively because we're saying the same thing. If each of you directors happen to say a different thing about a particular topic or a date or something like that, or policy of the district, that would be pretty ineffective. And so we want to get everybody on board, key management personnel, the community relations program, as well as board members. So that's, I think that's it. Does that?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And that was our meeting. Bill, would you have anything you'd like to add?
Not much. We got along pretty well. I found me agreeing with George more than Ken did, and which was unusual. And we had a good meeting, and I think Ken just gave you a very good report, better than I could have done.
Okay. Any questions? More? Okay. Butte local agency formation. That's mine. I did two things with them since the last meeting. The first was a budget committee meeting, and unfortunately, we, due to circumstances beyond our control, we're having to raise our dues by 15%. And the main reason is that we're spending a lot of time trying to get the city of Chico to obey the law, the state law. And unfortunately, if you have one bad apple, it spoils the whole barrel. And they've been making us out as the bad guys, but it's actually they broke the law, and now we're trying to get them to go back into it. But unfortunately, the way it's set up, you can't raise rates on one member and not the others. It has to be across the board. So that's why the 15% for everybody. Also, the staff hasn't had a raise in over 5 years, and they asked for 3%, and we said no, only 2, because that's what the county's getting, and so they're going with a 2, even though that's over the last 5 years. So if we can keep everyone to 2% over the last 5 years, we'll be okay.
0.2% a year.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, and then at the meeting, we got our audit report in and it accepted, and we did a couple more sewer extensions for the city of Chico. What we did to encourage them to do it was we lowered the rate from $1,300 to $600 if they go ahead and get into the law, and they've only done about, they still have about 62 left to do, and they're fighting it all the way because they only want to annex things that have a return on investment. Gee, they must have been listening to you, Bill.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway,
all we can do is try, Larry.
Yeah, it just doesn't work out that way with government. You got to take the good with the bad, and so that's basically what we did. Next one is Administration Personnel Committee. It's Hunt, chairperson, Corolla, other member.
We met. We gave our recommendations earlier in the program. We have nothing to report.
Great.
Because we already did it.
Butte County Special Districts. Hunt.
We met yesterday up at the Paradise Park and Recreation District in their big meeting room there. The Butte County Special District Association is a little anemic. We had 7 members show up and a speaker. They seem to have a hard time in getting all of these special districts. I don't know how many of us are a part of it, 30 or so, maybe 30. Well, if I look at this deal, it'll tell me. I think it's maybe 25 or 30. But they're not very well attended. We did have a quorum so we could conduct business. Yeah. This is not the general meeting. I mean, right. This is, but we met, we conducted business. There wasn't much to talk about, a very, very small financial situation there. We did have a good speaker. It's the same speaker that came and addressed the board last month here, John Gulsarian, the Emergency Services Officer for the Butte County Administration Office of Emergency Management. It was it seemed like I learned more from him at yesterday's presentation than I did several weeks ago when we had our board meeting here. But he did a very nice job in showing how he interacts and interfaces with various forms of governmental agencies and emergencies. And George brought up a proof source, something that he had recommended when he was here, I guess, or shortly in George's discussions with him. George, would you like to give a little report on that? Because it was a nice, positive statement to say about his interaction and how it helped us out.
I was going to cover it in my manager's report, but I'll just cover it right now.
Oh, all right.
We sent in a request, or we called in a request to the Division of Safety of Dams to get relief on our restriction at Magalia. Since February 6th, I had staff only release our environmental water, half CFS, out of Paradise Lake and capture all we could and start using Magalia as our full source of supply. That's causing some taste and odor, but our priority is water supply. And if we waited for later in the season, that taste and odor would be even more objectionable. So right now it's a little bit of a nuisance, but if you get the water warmer and the algae growing more, those odors and tastes will increase. So we wanted to use it as early as we could. But with our rainstorms, we were approaching our restricted elevation, so we put a call out to DSOD to request a 5-foot relief in that restriction. Their immediate response was, well, you should probably actually be lower than what we're letting you be now. So when Jim, but go ahead and send a letter and request it. And when Jim told me that, I went ahead and contacted John Gilsarian, because he said, if I have a pipeline to the state governor's office of emergency services, if you have any issues, call me. So I let him know. And so the same time we sent the letter to DSOD of the request, it went to John Gilsarian, who took it to the governor's office of emergency services. And we ended up getting a letter a couple days ago allowing us a 4-foot relief in our restriction, good through April 30th. And had we not had that connection with John through to the governor's office, I don't think that would have ever happened.
You notice they didn't give
Very
us
nice.
the 5 foot though.
No.
They had to change it.
What does that translate into acre feet?
Yeah.
About 300 probably acre feet. Because otherwise, when these storms hit, we just have to release it. And it's completely lost at that point.
I know. It'll be Del Oro's 267 acre feet coming out of the lake there, that extra amount we can store in there.
Yeah, do you want me to do a little calculation for you?
Yeah.
If we decided to
Well, their water.
spill their water, then we wouldn't get paid to treat and deliver that water. And so that'd cost us about $90,000.
Yeah. Like we were talking, just under $100,000.
So we better not spill it. That's another return on investment.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess this is my report. So that was about it. We're meeting next on June 17th. We don't know where. We think it's probably going to be with Mike Glaze down at South Feather, and we think he's going to host us to a lobster and filet mignon lunch. And I think the attendance will go up markedly. And that was it.
Nope. SB 751.
Okay.
And we want to commend Georgiana because she has been following the law ever since it was enacted.
That's true. That's true. In fact, when I came back, when Doug and I came back from the Sacramento trip, it was one of the things that I brought up, and all along I was kind of embarrassed bringing it up because we've been doing this all along. And that is when we have, because they brought it up down there, and that is it's the legislative body of a local agency shall publicly report any action of each member present for the action. So that means that when we take all those in favor say aye, aye. Anyone opposed? One person says no. In the past, we'll just say, well, it passes 4-1. But Georgiana, clever person that she is, has been noting the ayes and the noes by name, and when she translates that into the minutes, we've been in compliance with the law, even maybe before it became the law. So, very nice job.
Plus, she also did that abstaining was a 4-1 vote.
Yeah, she got that right.
She got that right, too.
Yeah.
Very good, Georgiana.
I forgot what item, Larry.
What item?
On my report. I thanked a lot of people, but one of them I omitted because I'm so used to seeing Lauren out there doing his task. I'd like to thank Laura and Harvey for videoing the preliminary planning for the workshop that we were talking about and being there all day and planning it. I think we have 3 hours of tape, and Butte College is going to be working it, but they're off this week, and they work in slow and mysterious ways, so you never get in a roaring rush. If they were furnishing water, you'd be very thirsty. But anyway, so thank you, Lauren, for doing that.
Thank you,
really
Lauren.
appreciate it. That's all I have.
Okay, general manager's report. We've covered most of it.
Some of it. Yeah, my written report. A couple of updates. The water rights, our water rights engineer developed some proposed language for our water our permit that would go to license, and the permit language for our newer permit going forward. We reviewed that. We had some suggestions, ran it by legal, and now it's been back to the water rights engineer, and we're ready to schedule, hopefully next week, a conference call to finalize that language and send it off to state what we propose. So that's moving on. The processed water recycle, we received a draft, not a final, but a draft report on the wetlands, and a final draft of the consultant's report for the other projects. We have a meeting with them next week to go over those reports. And as I said in my manager's report, our intent is to bring them up on April 8th to present those processed water recycle options at that meeting to the full board. I also remind you that we have a meeting, a workshop with the public next week on the drought, and I'm working on the presentation and the written word for that meeting still. But I would like to kind of pull you on your availability of maybe having a special meeting on April 2nd to actually have an action item to adopt anything we need to related to the drought. So you'll hear the spiels, nothing new from what's in my report, etc. But you had requested that be a non-action meeting, and that the public give you input and thoughts on where things stand. And then April 2nd would be a meeting to actually take action. Probably, since I don't think we'll fill up, it may be appropriate to make a drought declaration at that point. Well, it might not be an emergency, but at least make a drought declaration and probably adopt some prohibitions. And we've done some early level work with the Conservation Committee, and got some input from them, so I need to kind of fine tune that and bring that to you for your consideration. So if you can let Georgianne know. If you know tonight, let her know. If otherwise, call tomorrow and what your availability is for April 2nd at 6:30.
That'll be at 6:30?
Yeah, it shouldn't take long because you'll hear the whole presentation on the 27th. And so...
What time on the 27th?
6:30.
6:30, and that's at the council?
Town hall.
Town hall.
No,
that's
no,
here.
no.
No.
Well, I'm
Are you talking
open.
about the 27th?
The 27th is at 6:30.
Right, that's what he asked.
Town hall.
Right.
Okay.
I'm asking for
April
board
the
meeting on
2nd.
April 2nd. I would have it here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it wouldn't take long to adopt. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cooper.
Yeah.
If they hear public comment at the workshop on this item, on drought, will they need to have public comment yet one more time at the...
Yes.
Yes? Okay. I've heard it. I've heard that if you did public on an agenda or at a committee, you didn't necessarily have to do it at the board, but you're
Yeah.
saying yeah?
I think we should.
Okay.
So we'll have public input on the 2nd then, too?
Also, but I don't think, I won't have a long presentation because you'll have already heard it. You'll have the documents ahead of time of what I'm proposing, and you'll be able to debate that and adjust it and make a decision. So that'll be the only item on that agenda for the 2nd.
That night's fine for me, Georgiana, so
April 2nd is?
that's fine. April 2nd is a good night for me.
What day of the week is it?
That's Wednesday night.
Wednesday?
Couple other things.
Good for me.
On this Friday at 11 o'clock, we are hosting the ACWA Region 2 board meeting, of which I'm an ACWA Region 2 board member. And it was going to be our just normally scheduled meeting, but Tim Quinn, the executive director of ACWA, is coming. He has to be placed on our agenda, and he's going to talk to us and anyone interested in Region 2 about their interactions with the government related to the drought and those kind of things, and kind of a drought update from his perspective. So if you would like...
This Friday?
This Friday at 11 o'clock. If you'd like to attend, please let Georgianne know, because we normally eat lunch at that meeting, so we can make sure we got enough food for everybody.
What's the date?
This Friday.
21st.
21st.
21st, 11 o'clock.
I'd like to attend, but I'll be stuck in my office. Can you send lunch there?
No, but we'll have a call-in line.
I know,
can get
really,
you,
exactly,
so you
yeah.
can hear the word, but
Enough.
no food.
We'll call her on line two.
Food over line.
Larry could probably give you a description of how good it is.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, how good it is.
Yeah.
I
Put
may
the phone
not
by
be able to
Larry.
make it either. 11 o'clock's bad for me usually.
Did you have an ad hoc drought meeting?
The video for the workshop, you said we were going to have one. Is it available yet?
No, that's just what I was talking about.
Yes, the town is letting us use their...
No.
Oh, you're talking about on the 27th.
No, I'm talking about the one that you just had where you said you were going to get a video of that one.
Yeah, Lauren did that for us.
Oh, that's what he
It's
was
at
talking
Butte.
about.
It's at Butte's editing.
It went right over my
Right now,
head.
it's at our CR consultant to try and get some narration developed for it, so that will help Butte College edit it. Narration already, so they kind of know what the message is. The key message.
So when will that be available then?
We don't know yet.
Don't know
It's
yet.
gonna be a while.
Like Doug was saying, if you were thirsty, it's going to be a little while before you get
It'll be a
here.
little while.
Okay.
I've been at Butte College since 1970. They move in slow and mysterious.
The drought will be over.
Yeah. They're still working on the video from the 77 drought, so.
You can, I'm sure you saw our charts. I've been trying to send them. I was sending them every Monday because we were having storm events, and we're still climbing a little, but it hasn't been much different from what you saw previously. I'm still in line with looking at the community-wide 25% reduction goal that we would report out to the community. Weekly may be a little tough. We might do it monthly because the number will bounce around so much if we do it on a weekly basis, just especially in the spring. And then adopting prohibitions. And so that's the strategy I'm recommending at this point, as I think we'll be somewhere in the 25% below storage range. We're way better than we were looking a couple months ago.
When did the water for, what's his name, go in there?
Actually went in right about, right in here.
Right there.
I think.
Okay.
So there's a couple, I didn't subtract out their amount. It's about a foot. Maybe a touch more. I did attend a meeting once in a while. It's been about a year. I get together with other water managers in Butte County for drinking water suppliers, Cal Water, Chico, Cal Water Oroville, South Feather, Thermalito, some Durham's never made it. We cover kind of issues that are relatable to all of us, getting ideas from each other. The last one we did, we called it last week because the county is trying to get their message in line with all of our messages as far as the drought. So we had a county representative there, kind of had a roundtable discussion, and so they are developing a drought website that will link us to them so that they're getting the right people the right message. So they'll have a tool that somebody, because they get calls constantly. They got people with wells calling them saying, "Who's my water purveyor?" So they're going to make a tool so you can pick your address and they'll tell you who supplies water in your area, and then it'll link them straight to, if it's ours, our website, and first our drought page. And actually she's putting on, she wants to make sure there's a link on how to pay online, so it'll encourage people to do that. So it was a good meeting. It's worthwhile. Countywide, we're probably lower than most. Everybody's trying to apply. Maybe some not as effectively or much effort, like South Feather, but every district's trying to apply the governor's 20% at a minimum. Most of them probably aren't going to look for more than that.
Say that again, George. What did you say?
Well, when the governor declared a drought emergency, he asked for a 20% reduction from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all trying to have that as their standard minimum. They don't really need more than that like we do, or like we probably will ask for. Because Thermalito's got a small reservoir and less demand than us, and they're in good shape. South Feather's got about 70, they're probably got 100,000 acre feet of storage right now and use 25,000 in a year, so they're in pretty good shape. Calwater Chico's got the whole valley to suck up.
Okay.
So they're all in a little better shape than us, but we should be proud of where we're at, because part of my talk next week is going to be on where would we be if we had not made the efforts that we had with water meters and pipe replacement and all our conservation efforts. I think it would be much more dire, but I'm still developing
I think another good point is cleaning up our watershed too, that we've been working on the past few years. That has to contribute to the amount of water that gets cleaner into the lake, and you don't think so? Small percentage? Looks nicer.
Plants,
looks nicer. Okay, I'll just go with it. Looks nicer then. Okay.
It's much more fire safe.
Yeah.
Any questions?
April 8th meeting. We went out, Doug and I went up and talked to the fellows at the water treatment plant, and they we learned quite a bit from them. At any rate, we have a feeling that it might be an all-day affair, long, because of what's involved. We haven't seen any of the preliminary plans, but
You're talking about with the processed water?
yeah, the processed water thing. Would it be possible to have just a special meeting on the processed water thing, where we could take some time to really go through it, because it is a lot of money and it is a involved process that we're talking about. It's not a quick thing.
If you want me present, then it would have to be before the 8th, and I'm not sure the consultant could meet that. We were pushing them pretty hard to get that. So otherwise it'll be in May.
Okay, well, if they don't make the 8th date, then so it's going to be more of an information meeting than any action items?
When are you back?
It certainly can be no action, because it'll probably be like an hour-long presentation and questions. No action needs to be taken. We would probably ask if the board was willing to. There's a couple of ways. We think that the ACWA, the appropriate ACWA document for this project, is a mitigated negative declaration. And with the mitigated negative declaration, you can give us your preferred project, and we can develop that through ACWA. So that is kind of the direction or the action we'd be looking for, is based on the information you have, what's your preferred project? Maybe you don't have enough information to make that decision, and then you can direct staff to dig deeper into the report or whatever may happen, but that's kind of where we were headed.
Well, I know myself on the 8th, receiving it for the first time, and if the engineer's going to give us an hour report or whoever, I would not feel comfortable voting for it until I had time to look at it further. So an informational item would be fine.
Or a directional item to get us going on the CEQA. Non-mitigated declaration, whatever it
Yep,
was.
but we need to know which project to develop.
Exactly.
So we
you
gonna
wouldn't
get,
be-
So they can't pick it, yeah.
Can we
You guys
get
aren't
some
gonna
of-
pick a project.
can we get material on that before the meeting
Yeah,
that he's gonna present to us?
yeah.
Yeah, then we should be informed on that.
Well, you'll get it Friday.
Unless there's a big change, you're gonna get it Friday of next week.
Right. So you just gotta.
Friday of 2 weeks.
Nothing that weekend.
No, we'll get it to as early as you may,
Basketball.
more than the standard.
We'll get it like the 28th.
Yeah.
Unless I got a grant for kids.
We'll shoot for that.
Okay.
Unless there's huge changes they need to make.
Okay.
As soon as we get a final, we'll get it to you.
The guy who's gonna be here at Friday at 11, can he tell us about whether maybe we could get that $8 million from Governor Brown? Because it's gonna help our drought.
The 8 billion? What are you
Yeah.
talking about, the
The
bond?
8 million,
No, 8 million in the drought declaration.
the recycle.
Oh, he wants, yeah. He
Yeah.
wants, Larry,
I want them to
Larry
give
wants
that
our
to us.
recycle project to be categorized as a drought mitigation project
Right.
and be eligible
It's
for
only
grant.
$8 million.
I don't think that'll be I don't think he'll be willing to give you an opinion on that.
And see that, because we're asking for 5% more than the governor. So that, to me, it ties right in.
Uh-huh.
You wanna know where the money's coming from, right?
Right. We have to know where the money's coming from. Signed, sealed, and delivered.
Any more questions of the manager? Okay, let's see, no action taken. Okay, a legal report, please.
Well, I want to be respectful of the time here, but I thought I'd just share with you briefly how some of the other districts are dealing with the drought. I thought it'd be interesting. I find it interesting. It's keeping me incredibly busy. The Feather River districts, the ag districts, are facing a 50% curtailment. There was legitimate concern that the state would actually have to breach their agreement. The maximum amount they can be curtailed is 50% pursuant to contract. There was concern that the state may actually breach that, and that's, I guess, still theoretically a possibility, but it's looking unlikely at this point. So, but Western Canal, Richville Irrigation District, Biggs West Gridley, there's 9 of them total. Feather River settlement contractors that will be curtailed 50%. So that means that there will be a dramatic increase in groundwater pumping, and this doesn't implicate Measure G.
That's federal?
No, the Feather River contractors, they get water from the state DWR facilities. On the federal side, their contracts say they could be curtailed 25%, and the feds are holding them to a 60% curtailment, so they're only going to get 40% of supply. So in the Sacramento Valley, there's going to be a lot of groundwater pumping, and there's Butte County and others have very real concerns about that. So I was on a call this morning with the Department of Water Resources, and they gave me a series of slides, and I thought I'd share it with you. To me, it really highlights we were really blessed this year. We dodged the bullet. You kind of pick your terminology. But we're lucky that to be in as good of a situation as we are with how much water we have. If you look at the lines there, it says current daily precip 20.9. The 2 lines below there, 23, 24, that's the driest year historically on record. 76, 77 is the second driest. We're very likely to be the third driest, and this is the 8-station index, so it captures the North State. And to give you an idea, the current third driest year is about 27 inches. So we're at 20.9. We got, it's about 7 inches to play with. So we're pretty much going to be in the third driest year ever. Would you go to the next slide? This is current Oroville storage. The red line there is 76, 77. So the precipitation we had in February really saved the reservoir. They were looking at dead pool. We were looking at dead pool before considering curtailments and those types of things. Next slide. If you look at the top one, you see the 17, the blue 17. That's snow content. So this year is unique because we did get quite a bit of rain in February, but very little snow. And the snow we have received is less currently than what we received in 76, 77. The rest of the state, interesting, they're slightly better snow content.
Luckily, we don't depend on much snow.
No. Next slide. This.
I don't think we depend on any snow.
We'll probably get a little.
Okay.
But what this tells me is, had we not received maybe the February storm, it hit us perfectly. It hit our watershed. We have a relatively small watershed. Had that missed us, we'd be in real bad shape. And then you factor in the conservation efforts that the district has voluntarily undertaken, and we're in very good shape considered when you compare PID to other districts.
Mm-hmm.
Very fortunate. Very fortunate. I saw something on the news about districts that had water being asked to provide water for districts, drinking water for
Health
districts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the state is doing this, and it's a legitimate exercise.
Okay.
The concept is people ought to have enough water for health and safety, and tap water, flush their toilet, that type of thing. There's a real fight right now on what health and safety means. Some ag guys are saying, well, permanent crops ought to be health and safety, because if you don't water them, then they're going to die, and you've got 7 years to make it up. They're talking about health and safety keeping the delta fresh, so you got to release a certain amount of water to keep it fresh. Health and safety includes fish water. So everybody's trying to get their health and safety concept into what the state ought to consider. And actually, George included a public policy handout that says just the facts. That's not just the fact. That's like a presidential fact check. It depends on who you ask, I guess, is their version of the facts.
It was only for your information. I tried to make sure it wasn't political, and Dustin told me it was to some, so I apologize.
Yeah. It's very interesting, back to those slides I showed you, we're very close to 76, 77, and all the ag districts received their contract supply in 76, 77, yet in this year they're not. So what's the difference? Well, the environment's taking more. So the ag is shouldering the burden more so than past droughts. But we're really lucky, and to me, this really hit home that PID is in a perpetual drought. I think that's really true. We're always one bad winter away from curtailments.
Yeah. So going back to my question, are we going to be asked to supply? They're going to say, hey, you guys had a little more fortunate. That's what you just said, where you guys did a little bit better than other water districts. We'd like you to provide some water via, I would say, a tanker truck or whatever,
A real possibility is the Pines. If they have a well failure and they can't meet all of their needs,
We might be asked.
We will be asked. And we actually have an agreement, so
Yeah.
we have a set amount. We can at least have an agreement that limits the amount we'll send them.
Okay.
But it's not an option.
That is under a sales,
Yes.
a
you'd be
sales
compensated,
agreement.
yeah.
Yes, we
Okay.
can compensate.
Okay, so what I kind of got out, and it was just obviously a short blurb on the news, was that we'd be asked to just give up some of our water,
Yeah,
to
they-
supply water for health and safety for drinking.
Yeah.
And it didn't sound like there was going to be any reimbursement on it. So, and it's not that you wouldn't want to do that, but I'm just wondering, are we going to be made to do that? They're going to say your watershed was pretty productive
No,
during February.
PID's safe from
Okay.
that.
Yeah. We wouldn't want them to ask us to help with the salmon run in Butte Creek.
No, well, obviously, yeah.
I mean, we've run the numbers internally, going from a 0.5 CFS release to literally even like 1 or 2. I mean, it wasn't that much.
Just drain the lake.
And we're like Deadpool, like 20% of the years or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Really high number like that.
Yeah.
But that is a concern for some districts, and we've talked about it. There will be litigation as a result of this drought.
That Cottonwood, I was watching that the other night. I think wasn't it Cottonwood that they're just basically going to be out of water here by June.
Yeah.
Has there been any more discussion? Remember the 3 amigos? I think there's only 2 of them left. But has there been any more discussion on that? I realize that wouldn't help the drought, but it would help relieve our potential always drought, because we always a drought situation. Always has been that way. But anyway, is there anything new happening in the 3 amigos?
No, but I got your approval to put it in the North Sac Valley Integrated Water Management Plan, so it got put in there. A board member from South Feather is organizing a meeting to discuss it in April with, we're bringing in senators and assembly, not them, their staff, to try and keep it on the forefront of their minds.
But it's funny. Dennis Moreland is the director.
Is that tentative reservoir site somewhat in our watershed? Does our watershed run into it?
No.
It doesn't. It's off of it, isn't it?
It's on the west branch, or it's off stream of the west branch.
Yeah, right.
Dennis Moreland, his interest in these projects is not so much water supply as getting construction jobs. He's more of an economic. He has a very interesting perspective.
Okay. Staff and billing reports. Anyone want to talk about any of those? Bill?
43.
Staff and billing reports?
Yeah.
Did you have anything, Bill?
I don't know what we're talking about.
It's the one you usually pull off the consent agenda.
Oh, where is it?
It's the next item on the agenda.
Yeah, I know, but where is it in
9, what page?
Page 43. 43.
43?
Yeah, it starts on iPad, page 43.
Yeah.
43.
It's right in front of you on the screen.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought that went through. I didn't even realize we were going to talk about it. The faulty batteries. Can we? Well, I was there the other day. I saw a box full of them, and I talked to the fellow that works in the meter shop, and he said that the batteries are bad. Is there any way we can take one of those things apart and replace the batteries in it? They're just sealed that tight or something?
Fireflies?
Yeah, fireflies.
Yeah, no, once you take the battery out, then and that's the problem that Datamatic was having, is that to get their battery replaced, they had to send it to their third party, and then once they replaced the battery in it, they had to send it to another third party to reprogram the Firefly before it even went back to Datamatic themselves. So that's...
It would cost too much. It's like the whole thing. It costs too much to fix. Just go get another one.
Yeah, and it's better to store them now, because as the lawsuit goes on, things might flush out to where we can replace them. at a less costly amount.
Okay, I'll just keep going, reading this thing. The yard work looks pretty good, and the report is pretty accurate here from what I saw. The shower, I got a kick out of that because it looked like somebody had worked on it and abandoned it. But I was glad to see it's on the list here to work on. But is there another thing after 43?
The graphs.
All of the normal staff and
All the
building
staff reports, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm so used to them being in the consent agenda. I didn't even. Okay, I've got notes in here. On the leak detection survey project, are we doing the coated pipe, steel that has a coating around the type that failed over at Safeway? Some of it's going to be tested this time, because the way it was written, it sounded like you weren't going to check any of them. And boom, boom. On page 47, the draft average line is going up now on leaks, it looks like. So.
Well, it is a parabolic curve, average curve, so it'll never go down because of the type of curve that we're using to depict it. And it looks a little more up because the chart's more squished than normal.
Oh, okay.
Does this show our leak detection? Didn't we do that in February?
No, they're just starting to survey last week.
Okay, that's what it is, March. Okay.
We won't start fixing them for
on page 49, the first paragraph, water treatment plant. Some customers are noticing the change in quality, however, no customer service call. I brush my teeth in the morning, and I'll be glad when we get regular water back. I can taste that stuff every day. Of course, I'm down at the bottom of Neal, and that's pretty much toward the end of the pipeline. I'm just surprised that nobody has. It tells us that the community realizes that we all have to make sacrifices right now, and they're supporting us in that.
Well, there was a great article in the paper regarding that. I suppose you submitted it, but people understand what we're doing, and all of them I've talked to has accepted it. And I'm at the end of the line on our area, and I haven't noticed anything. But
I would think the end of the line would have less notice.
Oh, God, no. We used to get fish and frogs and snakes. And clear in the house.
Yeah, but that was before the filtration plant.
Oh, yeah, that was a long time ago.
On page,
Back when it was good water.
Doug filled his pond, didn't even have to stock it. It was pre-done, you know.
Pre-done, you betcha.
page 54, it shows the little target for checking the structure, the subsistence that's been taking place up at the water treatment plant. I'm glad to see that's finally being done, checking on it.
I thought they were looking at the boat, too.
Well, the boat's still there, it turned upside down, the ditch is filled in. So. I don't know how trustworthy the boat is.
Can I ask while you're looking, Bill? Page 54. Those little targets, is that for seismic shift?
no, it's not seismic.
Settling?
The parking lot's been settling and cracking since it was installed, and my best estimate is that it is just poor compaction because it was a very, very deep fill.
Mm-hmm.
But we were going to make sure that the retaining wall is not moving.
Along with it.
Appeared to be. It might have adjusted a little initially, and we think it stopped, but we're going to track it.
Okay.
You can see the tank to one side and holds, I don't remember what chemical in it for the water treatment. And that, if you go back again, go up there and go back against the wall, you'll find an inch and a half gap between the wall and the building as it settled over time.
Wonder what the compaction of that was. You know, that asphalt, I saw it the first time when I went on that tour 2 years ago or whatever it was. You know, there's some cracks there, humongous cracks, that they've sealed with tar. Wonder what the compaction on that was.
Should have been 90.
Yeah, I know, but wonder what that was. You think it was 90? Maybe at the top, but underneath there, who knows? I bet you they didn't go down to. I bet you they didn't go down to undisturbed dirt, did they?
There is spaghetti full of different lines down there,
Yeah.
which makes it difficult to get real compaction.
Compaction.
You can get compaction at a level above that on your meter, but if you didn't get it around the pipes,
Yeah.
it'll show up later.
Yeah.
Just wait till they take all the water out of the valley. Go down 10 feet.
Page 59, the 42-inch crossing rehab.
Good earthquake.
It says we're getting water rights permitting and the 42-inch crossing. I'm glad to see that finally getting some work done on it. And I think I'm almost done.
Okay.
Oh, no, I already covered that. For just off comments too, there's one fellow in my lodge that works for a well drilling company. They're book solid, and I think if anybody tried to get a well, they don't have enough money. These guys are so busy, they just have to put them on. And then the other thing is I have a friend in the seed business who lives in Manteca, and the local water district down there, it's on the east side of the San Joaquin Valley. And now they've just come out and said you get 100% of your location. So we're not the only one benefiting from the late rains. That's it. Thank you.
Entertain a motion?
We accept the, what?
I move we accept the staff and billing reports as presented.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any from the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Director's comments.
Oh, what happened? We did the treasurer's report over?
No, we
Yeah,
just
I already did
skipped
that.
I want to do the board recess and the worst.
No, we're going to skip that too.
You are, huh?
We're almost.
We got left as director's comment.
We're almost done. We're done.
Session.
I know.
Well, my eyes are turning
We'll
yellow.
be out of here by 10.
Okay.
Still got closed session.
That's going to be 3
Still going to
seconds.
be out of here by
We'll
10.
get a break before that.
Yeah, we'll make a break then.
Can I do director's comments first? And then
Yes? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think overall things are getting better, and I'm happy to see that the design on are coming to fruit, so we can get that taken care of. But I'm with Doug on the financing. We've just got to make sure that we get the financing lined out before we make a decision on what project we're going to do. And that shouldn't be the other way around. Okay.
Doug?
Well, yes, we have to make sure of doing that because we're going to be putting the
You're not
district.
supposed to talk about the same thing.
No, I'm just saying, okay, because we're going to be putting the district in debt until.
Yeah, but you're talking about the same
Same
thing.
thing.
I'm not talking about the same thing.
He
I'm
was
talking
talking
about my
about-
comments.
Yeah, your comments cannot be what his are.
Can't it?
No.
Oh, you're full
Then
of,
it-
you're full of crap.
Then
He
it's on
can't
the agenda.
discuss what.
Well,
he
there's a
said,
different comment right
but he
there.
could make a comment.
That's a George told me that.
You can't
Doesn't
start
know what he's
debating.
talking about then.
You can't start debating a topic.
You can't debate a topic.
I'm not debating a topic. I'm just saying,
He can have a comment about
I
it.
can have my comments.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can.
Just don't debate.
Just like you.
Just so
improving
you're
the-
clear, Larry,
Huh?
what happened was in the past they started talking
Back and forth.
Oh, no, we're not talking back and forth.
Okay.
This decision that we're making, and I guess, I know that you guys are all aware of it, we'll be doubling the district's debt that we currently have until the middle of this century. I'll be 130 years old. I don't know about the rest of you people, but anyway, I'll be sitting up on the side of Sawmill Peak looking at you. Other than that, I thought we had a very good meeting.
Absolutely.
Only 130?
Only 130.
Okay. Ken? Director's comment?
Yes, I'm going to make a director's comment tonight.
Let's debate it.
If he's counteracting my director's comments.
No.
Oh,
no,
good.
No, not necessarily. No, no. Well, maybe.
Maybe.
There seems to be a lot of comments made from directors that indicate that this board, over the last many years, has not made decisions based upon economic feasibility and has gone willy-nilly into major projects without establishing a clear path of how the project was going to be paid for. I have never seen that happen once in being in here 8 years. Everything that's come up, we have asked Kevin. George has brought it up. We're paying for it out of this reserve account. We're paying for it out of these funds. We're paying for it out of operational income. Or we are financing it, and this is how we're going to pay it back over this many years. We've never started a major project without having the financing for it. And there are too many comments that are saying, well, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. I agree, but I want to say we need to continue doing it and to have it understood that we have done it at least for the 8 years that I've been here. That's my comment.
Yeah.
I'd like to, who did this?
We did that.
You did that? Excellent job.
There used to be a shark there on the front page. Let people know.
You're debating.
Ah, nice. Thank you. I know, really. I'm just going to turn my back to Director Hunt. Did you guys do this all by yourself? Staff input? Anything? Excellent job. I took a couple minutes and was reading it, and it's not the police, but it is definitely that it's going to get people thinking, hey, I'm your neighbor and I'm watching you just waste water on a daily basis. And it's definitely going to be, it's very nicely said, but it also at the same time drives home the point that there is something that we have to be watching for. So
One was too nice.
with the shark, I know really you want to draw the shark back on there, I know. And yeah, the goldfish has teeth now. I'd just like to say what a great job. And I am reminded
better now?
by your guys' great work. I had an idea what the answer was, but you guys do excellent. It's one of the best things we've taken on. Our return on investment, I can see, you're not giving us cash back, but our return on investment is tenfold.
25% gold, that'll be our way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
I think our return on investment is tenfold with you guys. So that was my director's comment.
Okay, my director's comment is, I've been on here 11 years, and I'm very proud of what the board's done in this 11 years. And I think we are one of the most financially sound districts in Butte County. I'm proud of it. That's all
He copied me.
Okay, we're going to go into closed session conference with, or we're going to take a break first.
Good.
We're going to take a break of 5 minutes, and then in 5 minutes we're going to meet in closed session conference with labor negotiators.
5 minutes later, we'll be done.
Yeah, hope so. It's like a piranha.
That is, I know, really. Goldfish is a memory.